Okay, I hit the button. I just gotta wait for this video to pop up
All right.
so I can blast it. Oh, there we go. Found it. Well, let me click on it. Let
All
me
right.
mute it so I can blast it. Oh, there we go. You don't get any feedback. Get that link. Go to Twitter. Twitter.
Twitter.
Okay. Oops. Tweeted it without even including the link. Great. All right.
What did you tweet without the link?
I just put Fahrenheit 11.9 live stream with
Oh,
the
okay.
exclamation mark with no link.
Here's Fahrenheit 11.9 live stream with no live stream. Um,
Okay. I think I posted in all the relevant areas,
right.
Twitter and Facebook. Now let me click on the window so that you're not stuck in that pose. Because if I don't click on the window, it just kind of freezes.
Okay.
And I got my notes, and we're here to talk about a movie. So, of course, it's the normal crew. We got me, the woke centrist, and go ahead and introduce yourself, Andrew.
I'm Andrew, aka Andrew Mindgasms from the Mindgasms channel. I talk with Dusty here on his channel all the time, and he talks with me on mine with me and others all the time as well.
Yeah, and today we're just going to do a movie chat. We're going to discuss whether Fahrenheit 11.9 is woke or whack. I know we were supposed to do this last week, but Andrew had watched Fahrenheit 9/11 instead, which is an honest mistake.
Yeah, watched the wrong movie. But now I've watched both like relatively back to back fairly recently, so it's interesting to compare them.
And I'll have to say that 11.9 is really topical. There are some
Mm-hmm.
issues in 11.9 that kind of just had some things play out recently. I
Yeah,
don't know if you know this, but that governor has been charged. The governor who was responsible for the Flint water scandal.
oh, okay. No, I didn't know that. That's good though.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was only a misdemeanor, though.
that's a big part of the movie. He spends a lot of time on the Flint water scandal. And I had heard some things about that already, but I didn't know anywhere near that level of detail. That's pretty fucked up. It doesn't really have much to do. Well, he doesn't really go into what that has to do with Trump very much in that section, though.
No, it's like kind of like a slice, kind of a vertical slice of what was, I guess, his pet issues from what was going on at that particular time. But he does dedicate quite a bit of it to the Flint water scandal. Uh,
Yeah.
so the movie, we start out and we're kind of shown it's leading up to the election night, right? So I think it's like a day before the 2016 election. We get a little slice of what the crowds are looking like. We see that Hillary has drawn a huge crowd, and at Donald Trump's kind of like announcement, it was pretty small. One, they weren't expecting to win, so there wasn't a whole lot of people gathered there. Um, the Hillary's camp, they pretty much thought it was a lock-in for victory.
This beginning part there is actually one of the similar parts between this one and Fahrenheit 9/11, because Fahrenheit 9/11 starts off. It even starts off with some of Michael Moore's narration being almost verbatim the same in the two movies, about how everyone was really convinced that Al Gore won the 2000 election in Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah, and we do get kind of a montage of all the different media outlets showing the very slim chance of a Trump victory. And as the night slowly goes, we see that all of these people who are monitoring the election are just kind of blown away at the results. And we see people crying in the streets because Hillary didn't win. I know I got a quote here, and I don't know if this was something that Michael Moore said, but they were talking about the extravagance of like the Hillary victory party, and that quote, she had no idea who any of these rappers were.
Yeah, thanks to Chance the Rapper, Jay-Z, she had no idea who any of these rappers were.
The New York Times predicted that Trump only had a 15% chance of winning.
Yeah.
And we get like a section of people, and there were already people congratulating Hillary.
Yeah, people were already popping champagne bottles.
Yeah, so there was an extremely fabulous man who congratulated Hillary for being the first woman president. And by fabulous, I think you know what I'm talking about.
I don't remember exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, there's like a super flamboyant dude who's like celebrating her victory.
Oh, okay.
Even Fox News thought Hillary was going to win.
Yeah, they did at first.
So what happened? Where Trump started to gain was in the Rust Belt. Funny thing is on Fox, they even invoked Michael Moore by name, telling them that, hey, the Rust Belt is who you got to speak to. The funniest part of it, I don't know if it's funny, but you have this Hillary Clinton theme song, which is a fight song. I forget which like artist it is, but I remember that being the song of her campaign.
Yeah.
We got a fight song.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh yeah. That was like a feminist superhero song or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So we have this song just like playing while you see all these Hillary Clinton supporters crying about the loss. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is pretty funny. So Trump, I guess his little thing was on the Empire State Building, and I know Michael Moore says, "How the fuck did this happen?"
Yeah. He said that about Bush winning in Fahrenheit 9/11 too.
So he hit some of the same cues there.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, are you sure you're still streaming? I can't see that on your YouTube channel here.
Really? Did it get cut off?
Well, it didn't say, nothing was showing up at first, but now in my subscriptions, I see the streaming icon on yours, but on your page, I don't see the video.
Uh-oh. Oh, I know I was streaming before I left. I can go and check really quick.
Oh, now it's there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we're
Okay.
good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, no problem. So we see this construction of a wax Donald Trump.
Oh
That's
yeah.
eerily accurate.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a really bad version of Donald Trump. This is not the movie, by the way, but I think there's an exhibit at Disneyland where they have all the presidents, and the Donald Trump just looks horrible.
Oh,
And
really?
well, people have said that they think that they had already made a Hillary Clinton, and they tried to convert the Hillary Clinton into a Trump. So it just looks super strange.
That'd be
When you
funny.
get the chance, look it up. It's like the Hall of Presidents at Disneyland, like the Trump um, animatronic, I guess. I wonder
Okay.
what they're gonna do with that. Like, are they gonna leave him in like just because of the crap that's going on? Like, are they
Yeah,
gonna
that's a
leave?
good question.
I wonder if they're gonna leave him in there, or if they're gonna take him out. But we'll see what happens with that. Um, so we get like some cool Russian theme.
Oh yeah, I see I'm looking at the picture right now. It
Doesn't
looks
it
like a
look like Hillary Clinton with like a Trump wig on?
it looks like a cheesy cartoon. It looks like a cheesy cartoon of him.
It
That's
looks. um, so we get like some Russian music going on, um, and that's because Moore places some blame on the Russians and Comey, apparently.
Yeah, that whole part was annoying. There were a lot of there were a few like major annoying parts to me in this movie. That was one of them.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's more than just that. But I think even after the election, he had like some under analysis where he just said, yeah, like Hillary was neglecting really important areas, and we
Hmm.
kind it kind of goes through that in this. So, Gwen Stefani, why is she important to this story?
Yeah, I had no idea about that. I thought that I thought that was Trump was basically running on a dare kind of because Obama said you'll never be president in that White House inaugural dinner, but apparently he ran for president because he was pissed off that Gwen Stefani was making more money than him on The Voice than he ever made on TV. So he ran for president because he was pissed off at Gwen Stefani and didn't really have any plans, which isn't really surprising at all in retrospect. I thought that part was interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so apparently that's why he ran because the network wasn't paying him as much as Gwen Stefani. And I'm assuming other stars were getting paid more than him also, not just Gwen Stefani. But basically, this was supposed to be some type of stunt to raise his profile so that he would start getting paid more, which is interesting because that would mean that The Apprentice would be his primary source of income, right? If he cares about it this much. So let's see.
Yeah, well, his business ventures tend to fail, right? And he
Yeah, the
has
only
a
thing
lot of
that's
them.
yeah, the only thing that's ever been profitable for him was The Apprentice and him licensing his name. But anything he seems to do himself seems to fail.
Yeah.
Like even Mar-a-Lago doesn't make money. Like from what I understand, none of his retail properties are actually profitable.
Yeah, I've heard
He
that too.
he pays more for upkeep than he actually makes for these properties. So So he creates a fake presidential announcement, apparently. So, you know that
Oh yeah,
famous scene where you see him coming down the escalator? Apparently, a lot of those people in the crowd were paid extras.
right. Yeah. He paid them each like $50 or something like that, right?
Yes, he paid a bunch of people to be fake supporters for him
Yeah,
while he was descending the escalator. Interesting. I had not known that.
I didn't
Uh,
either.
so, in classic Trump fashion, in his announcement speech, he goes off script, and that's when we get the famous, Mexicans are murderers and rapists line. Like
Yeah,
right off the bat, he comes in. Like if this is his first speech, you gotta think, what the hell else is this guy gonna do?
yeah. He says a whole bunch of random shit. To be fair
Yeah,
though,
and a
you
lot of
can
it's
see
random too.
you can easily tell that clip in the movie is like
It's
a
edited.
really heavily edited together clip of him of the most ridiculous shit that he said.
hmm But he does say a lot of ridiculous shit. Other
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you don't really have to. He goes on long rants, so it's not
yeah,
like you want to sit through like a 40-minute rant.
yeah.
He just kind of picks up like the most interesting bits out of there.
Long random tangents about random shit.
Yeah, so NBC, the network that hosted The Apprentice, fired Trump for his comments made in his announcement speech, specifically about the Mexicans. Um, so yeah, in my notes I did write supposed incoherent rant, and I put in parentheses clever editing.
Yeah,
So, but I did say some of the shit he does say does sound crazy though.
yeah. Even
So,
the that line about Mexicans, isn't it something like he did say some really racist shit, of course, but uh didn't like a lot of news networks take it out of context where he was actually talking about uh a particular drug cartel. I forget which one it is, like MC-17 or that's not what they're called, but it's something similar to that. And he was talking about
13.
like gang members specifically being racist and murderers or something like that.
Well,
The rapists and murderers, I mean.
he made another statement about Mexicans later, and he said that they were like animals, and that's where when he said he was talking about MS-13.
Oh, okay.
But in this one, he
MS-13.
he
Yeah.
he did the classic talks out of the both sides of his mouth. He's like, oh yeah, murders and rapists, and some of them are okay.
Yeah.
That's not really, come on. Actually, most of them would be okay.
Yeah.
The people he's talking about is like the vast minority of illegal immigrants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not very factual or civil.
Yeah.
Um, so, at that time, Trump starts to see the benefits of running because he's getting so much media attention
Yeah.
from this, and
That's
we
what
get
he's all about.
yeah, he would just call the media directly. He didn't have at all of a difficult time at promoting himself.
Hmm.
And the media was frothing at the mouth, waiting to cover anything that Donald Trump said. I think there was a rally where he showed up like 40 minutes late,
Yeah.
and it shows like the media just covering an empty podium, waiting
Yeah.
for Donald Trump to speak.
He likes to act like he's a celebrity.
And that's true because I remember during the election, even during the primaries, the media was frothing at the mouth to cover Donald Trump. They
Yep.
didn't give a shit about anybody else. Bernie could have been having a rally. They didn't cover it. They only cared about covering Donald Trump rallies.
Yep.
Same with Clinton. Like, I don't remember a whole bunch of Clinton rallies that they covered. It was just all Trump all the time.
Yeah. I don't remember either.
So we get a number of different news CEOs talking about the value of Trump driving up the ratings. I know someone asks a CNN president about their coverage of Trump, and he basically can't answer.
Right.
We got a quote from Les Moonves, which is the former CEO of CBS. I think he got Me Too'd.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is before he got Me Too'd, but the quote was, "It may not be good for America, but it is damn good for CBS." And they
Hmm.
were talking about the coverage of Donald Trump. So it's basically he's more setting up the complicity and in like their role in making Donald Trump president.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then we get a lot of different, I guess, Me Too people. So they talk about how, but yeah, and this is interesting. Like, how many sexual predators are in show business?
Yeah, there were a hell of a lot of them for sure.
So yeah, they just
Like
talked to a few.
particularly in the news networks, right?
Yeah, so I just call them SPs. I'm not talking about suppressive persons. I'm talking about sexual predators here. So we got
Yeah.
Matt Lauer, Mark Halper, Charlie Rose, Roger Ailes, Bill O'Reilly. And all of those people went down. They all pretty much lost their jobs. Um,
This is one of the aspects though of like my least favorite part of the movie were the criticisms of Trump in general because like even though I'm not a fan of Trump, the criticisms of him seemed intellectually lazy for the most part. Like there was this stuff about, guilt by association, and then
yeah,
most of the criticisms around Trump seemed to center around him being racist, sexist, Hitler guy who's similar to Hitler, which is, and they like he Michael Moore briefly glosses over the legitimate policy criticism at the end there, which I wished he would have spent way more time on.
well, I think Trump is boomer racist.
Yeah,
Um, I think he's sexist. I think that's pretty apparent.
yeah.
I
I
don't,
just mean
yeah,
that's like low hanging fruit.
it is low hanging
Time
fruit.
on that.
Like, yeah. I understand the guilt by association stuff, but oh, the Epstein stuff is kind of interesting, right? Um, as we do know that he is pretty loose when it comes to being like monogamous with his wife. I don't know how many times he's cheated on Melania. It's
Yeah,
probably a
probably
ton.
a lot.
Yeah, it's probably a shitload.
Yeah,
And it's pretty apparent that he. I wouldn't doubt that he is up to the not. I wouldn't say he's up to the level of Epstein, so to speak.
oh yeah, for sure.
But I'd say he's probably close to like Bill O'Reilly or Matt Lauer in that. I
Yeah, it
wouldn't
wouldn't
doubt it.
surprise me. Like they were going into that stuff with the beauty pageants about how he would like uh walk in on beauty pageant women and see them naked and creep them out and shit like that. And there was even that stuff about him being creepy and sexual around Ivanka, his daughter,
It
which
is pretty creepy though. I'll be
yeah.
honest. Like I couldn't. That is
I'd
so
be dating
wrong.
her if she weren't my daughter.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, he brought up the the topic is sex, like right in front
Yeah.
of his daughter.
What do you
I
think you're
thought,
both the best at? Well, I would say sex, but I can't really talk to her about that.
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, he's about as creepy as Biden. I don't know, is creepier, but
Yeah, she's got a
was
great
there?
body. She's tall. She's always been very voluptuous. She didn't get breast implants.
Yeah, it's pretty strange.
Yeah.
So we pretty much see is that Trump plays the media for suckers.
Yeah.
Except Trump is kind of afraid of Michael Moore. It
Yeah.
seems like
Oh
so
yeah,
he
that whole part with the interview that he was going to do is interesting. Or well, that he did do, and the producers had to talk to him, right?
yeah he had to like tone down his Michael Moore-ness
Yeah.
and um is Roger and Me another documentary?
Yeah, it was Michael Moore's first documentary. I saw it, but it was a long time ago. And I forget, kind of forget mostly what it was about. It was another thing involving that happened in Flint, Michigan about some factory getting closed down. I think it had something to do with might have even had to do with the Reagan administration or something like that. I'm pretty fuzzy on the details, but yeah, I think that's
Okay.
kind of what it was about in general.
Okay, because I know Trump mentioned that he liked that documentary.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what Roger and Me was about. I assumed it had something to do with Roger Stone, but I guess it's not about that.
No, it's I think Roger is a factory worker that he knew that had something major to do with that factory getting closed down. Like he was one of the major victims or something, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, and another weird thing is that Trump claimed to have dinner with Michael Moore, and Michael Moore's like, that never happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
That part was interesting about them. The media making it look like he was all buddies with Trump and like other people involved with him. Like people photoshopping pictures of him together with people who were in Trump's crowd, and that one woman whose name I forget, finding him doing this protest on the street and acting all buddy with him or something like that.
yeah, it was pretty strange. Um, so I know one thing I did know is always knew that Jared was a liberal, which is weird. And I'm talking about Jared Kushner.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, Trump was a liberal rather until he started running for president too, wasn't he?
well, he was a liberal until probably before he started criticizing Obama.
Oh yeah, the birther stuff. That's when he started to sound more like a Republican.
Yeah, so apparently Jared Kushner threw a release party for Sicko, and he had a lot of good things to say about it in the
Oh right,
documentary.
yeah, yeah,
And Steve Bannon was responsible for the video release of Sicko, and also had some nice things to say
yeah,
about Michael Moore.
yeah, which is interesting.
I think he also ran into Kellyanne Conway as well.
Yeah, is that the woman who was like she saw him in the street and was acting all buddy with him when he was filming a video in protest of something or other? I don't remember
Yeah,
the details.
yeah, that was Kellyanne Conway. So, we already kind of discussed the pedo Trump stuff, which is like the creepy stuff with his daughter. Um, I don't know why I wrote this, but I wrote, "Does this make you feel uncomfortable?" I think that's one of the things that Michael Moore said
Oh, okay.
while
Well,
showing
yeah.
like weird interactions between
Yeah,
Ivanka and her dad.
yeah.
We get the he does talk about Trump's racism a little bit, which would be the suit that was filed against him for not allowing black tenants into one of his apartment buildings.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And then the whole thing about the Central Park Five.
Yeah, I didn't know about that until this documentary.
Really? Because there's a whole Netflix series based off of the Central Park Five. It's actually pretty
Well, I
good.
know about the Central Park Five. I haven't seen that documentary, but I know kind of the general details of the story, but I didn't know the Trump aspect of it.
Oh yeah, Trump. I think he took out full page ads telling the public that they should be given the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And even after they were proven innocent, he never backed off of those statements.
Yeah, he tends not to back off shit he says, even if he's proven wrong about it. There was that part where he was that Larry King was interviewing him, and he was saying something negative about the Central Park Five, and Larry King was pushing back on him for that.
Mhm. So they go a little bit into the birther movement, which is another aspect of Trump's racism. Um, like, to be honest, I think there's a case here because why would Obama's birth be in doubt? It just doesn't make sense. And then Ted Cruz. I don't know how Ted Cruz was able to run for president because he's Canadian. And supposedly, you have to be born in the United States in order to run for president. So, I don't know. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I had heard that Ted Cruz wasn't born in America, but I didn't remember that he was born in Canada specifically. And
Yeah.
with the Trump stuff, I mean with the Obama stuff and the birther movement. Um, hmm. Had he like not? Do you think Trump had not considered running for president then at that point?
I don't think so. This is like pre aspirations.
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole thing that happened after the birther thing happened. So um so we get to see a little montage of Trump's love for dictators.
Yeah, that's another like really kind of like stupid low hanging fruit criticism of him that I thought was kind of dumb.
Yeah, but it's true.
It is. He's like, oh yeah, that Kim Jong Un's really strong. I like him. Everyone loves him.
Yeah, all the dictators he loves.
Yeah.
um, and next we get to meet one of the other major characters in this documentary, Rick Snyder, who is the governor of Michigan.
Right. He's like the main villain in this, really, more so than Trump even.
I think he is. So Rick Snyder, he's the governor of Michigan. We get to find out that he's rich and that he's good at foosball.
Yeah.
And this is something I guess I really didn't pay attention to at the time that it happened. Apparently, he took some really authoritarian measures and removed elected officials and installed like puppets in order to run some of the cities in Michigan.
Yeah, I sure didn't know about that either.
That's pretty crazy. I don't know how he was able to pull this off legally, but it seems kind of nuts to do that. So after he did that, um, he rerouted the Flint River because he wanted to build a new pipeline from the lake. So Flint River was the new drinking water for Flint. From what Michael Moore has explained, the new pipeline was really unnecessary because the current pipeline was working fine. But Moore points out that he gave the building contract to somebody who had contributed to his campaign. So it sounds like he was just being a corrupt politician. Um, I wrote the note, slow motion ethnic cleansing, and I have no idea why. Is this something that Michael Moore said? Oh, you're like muted. Did you go take a
Oh,
piss?
sorry. No, I don't remember Michael Moore saying that. Slow motion ethnic cleansing. Maybe that's the like. Maybe you were thinking that's kind of what was happening in Flint in general, because the at least the way Michael Moore presents it in the documentary is that it
It's all
seems
minorities.
like the governor was specifically targeting black people, and they're the ones who suffered the most from the bad quality water.
Well, I know all of the cities that he installed the puppet officials in were also black cities.
Yeah, and a lot of people did die from it too, obviously, right?
Yeah, so we get to see the brown water, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's gross.
That's that's beyond fucked up.
Yeah,
Um, so we see some of the effects of this water. People lose their hair. They have rashes all over the place. Some of them are developing skin diseases. Um, it's explained that everyone is starting to get lead poisoning, and
yeah,
that lead poisoning can cause genetic damage. So that means the damage that lead poisoning causes is basically irreversible.
yeah, yeah. That was a chilling part.
And lead poisoning can induce, they say IQ drops up to 10% or something like that. So,
Yeah, that's a lot.
yeah. So, from what he said in the documentary, the governor hired a PR firm to spin the whole incident.
Yeah,
Another thing that pissed me off is the people at the GM plant started complaining because the water quality was interfering with their manufacturing processes.
yeah,
So the governor turned on the clean water for GM, but even knowing what was going on in Flint, they still got the shitty water.
yeah. That was like definitely one of the most fucked up aspects of that whole situation.
Um, and then they go back to Trump for a little bit. There's a quote of Trump saying, "Look at my African American over here."
Yeah,
And, we completely forget about this. Like, I forgot about it.
yeah, me
But at a
too.
lot of those Trump rallies, there were people fighting. There were protesters that would show up inside the rallies. They would get punched and stuff like this by people in the audience.
Yeah,
But we're also shown that Trump went up against the Republican elites and he outflanked them and he outflanked Hillary, especially because Trump was pretty active in the campaigning. He traveled a lot, and apparently Hillary just sent out cardboard cutouts of herself.
yeah. That that was a really bad strategic flaw on her part.
Um, Another thing that's interesting is Michael Moore does like an analysis, and he says that the USA is actually a leftist country.
Yeah, that's interesting. That part wasn't surprising to me because you and I follow a lot of the same progressive YouTubers who bring up similar statistics fairly often about the widespread support for things like Medicare for all and getting America out of all those wars in the Middle East, and for example.
Yes, so he showed a number of different issues, and a lot of the issues are quite not like super progressive by any means. These are basic things that a lot of different Western countries already have.
Yeah, like we have Medicare for all up here in Canada, or like the
Yeah,
equivalent of that.
like Medicare for all. Legalization of marijuana.
Yep,
Uh,
federally legalized up here in Canada.
yeah, and LGBT stuff. What was the other major things? Um, like some places, of course, get free college.
Yeah, we don't get
Well,
that here. I wish we did, but we do tend to have much cheaper prices than in America.
yeah, I don't know how much yours are, but
Like
the prices here
my
are ridiculous.
local small college is like if I'm taking like 3 or 4 courses a semester, it's like 2 grand a semester.
Well, how much per unit?
You mean like per class?
Well, over here in the United States, they charge you per unit at a community college.
I don't know what that means.
Like a unit usually means an hour of instruction per week.
Oh, okay. Well, I think they charge by the class, and it's like I don't remember exactly, but it's something like maybe 300 or 2 or 300 per class or something like that, maybe. No, probably a little more than that because I think it was still like 2000 or so when I was taking only 3 classes in one semester.
Mm. Well, the community college near me, I think it's 300 per unit. So
Okay.
that means if the class meets an hour per week, it's like a $300. But classes usually meet more than that. So
Yeah, I think per class there was an average of about 3 hours a week of instruction time. There were usually 2 hour-and-a-half long classes or 1 3 hour long class.
yeah, so if that was the case, if it was a 3 hour long class, it'd be about $1,000 ish per class.
Okay, that's
That's
a little more, but it actually pretty similar.
that's for just like the cheap community college. If I was talking about like a regular university, that's way, 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 way more.
Yeah, like Harvard or something is like 50 grand a semester, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
I'm not even talking about Harvard. Like even George Mason is probably George Mason is a college that's like a couple miles from me, and I think it's probably like 30 or 40 grand a semester.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, so moving on. So yeah, there was a lot of money interests from preventing, the United States populace from getting what they want. But they talk about how the electoral college sucks, and we see some old ladies hitting a bong, and
Yeah.
and then Moore highlights the word compromise, and then we see Bill Clinton. So we hear all of the things that Bill Clinton did, and they're basically all Republican things.
Yeah.
So we're talking about deregulation, outsourcing, mass incarceration. Um, so
He
so
also famously I think he bombed like a something like a medical supply company in I forget which country it was, thinking that it was a weapons factory. I'm sure that was
Was it
far
in
from home.
Bosnia or something
I
like
forget
that?
what country it was. It was a long time ago that I heard it.
Probably Bosnia, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a major, I wouldn't call it a major war, but it's kind of a war that people forget about. That was during Bill Clinton's reign.
Yeah.
So it's shown that the largest political party in the United States is actually non-voters.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Um,
more than a third of the country or something.
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
So we see that they say that the New York Times became neoliberal,
Yep. Sure
and they
seems.
and they talk about the war hawk named Thomas Friedman. I don't know much about him. We see that the New York Times does not feel the burn. Uh,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
do not like.
I've read one of Thomas Friedman's books, and I've read a little bit of what he said in the New York Times, and he does really sound like the standard caricature neoliberal.
So I'm not aware of Thomas Friedman, so maybe I'll have to look into him. So later we see a bunch of, well, he starts talking about Bernie a lot, and especially they focus on West Virginia. And I didn't know what was going on, but they made it seem that Bernie won every county in West Virginia. But because of the super delegate system, he lost West Virginia.
Yeah, that was a good and also another kind of unfortunate part about how what a lot of people know now, which is that Bernie was cheated out of the nomination for 2016.
Yeah, so we see that a bunch of he actually won a bunch of states, but because of the super delegates, yeah, he was denied those states.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the convention is when those states cast their votes. So, and then Bernie conceded and told people to vote for Hillary.
Just like he did with Biden this time.
hmm And I wrote in the notes why I voted third party. This was the event that made me vote third party.
Yeah, it's similar
Um,
to why if I were an American, I would have voted third party in 2016 and in 2020.
well, third party, I was just so pissed about the whole DNC theft that I wasn't going to vote for any Democrat.
Yeah,
Um, because I really liked Bernie, and I thought they just screwed him. And I was like, I'm not voting for you guys. You guys suck. Um, so I wrote this note, and I'm not sure what it's referring to.
you should make sure to add context to your notes next time.
Yeah, so I wrote autocrats succeed when democracy is not working.
That's a good way of distilling one of the themes in the movies because one of the parts that I did appreciate about Michael Moore's criticisms of Trump, which is that at the end he emphasizes that Trump was allowed to become president due to the broken democratic system in America.
Yeah, I think that's largely true. Um, Nick Lyon, I'm not sure if he's someone associated with Rick Schneider's um, office, but there's a clip of him lying about the Flint water situation.
A lot of
Um,
people seem to have lied repeatedly about that.
and amazingly, Michael Moore gets this woman named April Cook Hawkins to enlighten him about some certain things. This lady was somebody who worked in surveying the people who were poisoned, and her higher ups told her to fudge the numbers.
Yeah, that was fucked up, man.
There was a list where nearly every single person, I think every person on that list was lead poisoned.
Yeah, yeah. And they
And
downplayed the fuck out of it.
yeah, they used the loophole that they would ask some people to come back and, like, they tested pretty bad and they'd ask them to come back to do a retest.
Yeah,
And if they didn't come back to do the retest, they marked them as, oh, they're good.
yeah. Fuck, man.
Um, which is really messed up. So she was asked to cook the books by her supervisor. She ended up keeping all the documents, and then she shows these documents to Michael Moore. Um, and she noted that every single child in the record had elevated lead levels.
Yeah, pretty fucked up, man.
Not
That's
only,
like
yeah, not,
one of the chilling parts. One of the other chilling parts to do with that section of the documentary too was that I believe it was, I forget what country she had gone to, but it was an army veteran who was in one of the countries in the Middle East, I think Iraq or Afghanistan, and she was saying that they had better water quality in that shitty third world country than they do there in Flint, Michigan.
yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
Yeah,
Another thing that was really disturbing is that apparently the people of Flint had the highest water bills in the country. Um, this is just as fucked up as them having to be forced to deal with the poison water. Not only was their water poisoned, they were paying more for it than anybody else in the United States.
yeah, it was pretty fucked up too.
Flint is not a rich town. I think this town is was pretty much considered, very depressed social economically. So these people were having a very tough time. I know people were calling it a prison called Flint because there's one, nobody was going to buy any property here because of the water crisis and because this was not a nice area.
Yeah, that was
Um,
that. Yeah, that was a good point that woman made who he interviewed. Who she was responding to people who say, "Well, why don't you just move out of here?" And she said, "Are you gonna buy my house?"
yeah, exactly. There were people dying of Legionnaire's disease. I don't
Yeah,
know what Legionnaire's disease is. It sounds badass, but I'm guessing it's not.
yeah,
Because isn't a Legionnaire like a fighter or like someone in the military?
your
That's what I
audio's
was
cutting
taught.
out a little.
Oh, no, isn't a Legionnaire a fighter in the military?
Yeah, I thought it was like one of the some sort of guard in the ancient Roman military. I'm looking up Legionnaire's disease here. It's a form of atypical pneumonia caused by any species of Legionella bacteria, quite often Legionella uh, pneumophilia. Signs and symptoms include cough, shortness of breath, high fever, muscle pains, and headaches. Nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea may also occur. So it sounds
So,
pretty bad.
Legionella is the name of the bacteria.
Yeah,
So I wonder if it's has anything to do with an actual Legionnaire or not,
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm
or
gonna
if
ask that
they.
question.
um. So during the movie, we see people protesting at the Michigan. I don't know if it's City Hall or the state capitol, but um, Michael Moore actually shows up here. I was, I really felt for these people. Like, I was looking at this thing, I was like, Jesus, I can't believe. it was this bad, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody had been helping them. And when I saw Michael Moore show up, I was like, oh, finally, someone's there to see what's going on and to put a public face on this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I understand why he's there. He's a Michigan resident, so he's totally invested in this.
And he was born in Flint, Michigan. He mentions that in every single one of his documentaries that I've seen.
Oh, he was born there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I knew he was from Flint. I knew he was from Michigan. I guess I missed the part where he said he
Or
was
maybe
born
he
in
doesn't
Flint.
say. Maybe he doesn't say specifically that he was born there in all of his documentaries, but he mentions Flint, Michigan, in all of them.
Okay, so um, we see that this. Here's one thing: the government office covered up the poisoning for a year and a half.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up, man.
So one thing that Michael Moore notes is that no terrorist has figured out how to poison an American city.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically saying that Rick Schneider is worse than a terrorist.
Yeah.
Um,
It depends on your perspective. You could certainly see him in that way for sure.
mhm. So Michael Moore shows up at Snyder's office and he wants to perform a citizen's arrest.
Yeah.
He's stopped by, I guess, somebody in the office, and
Some like public relations guy. I forget what his official title was.
yeah, I know he asked the public relations guy to drink some Flint water, and he
Yeah.
declined.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, they said that he was booked and and there's not going to be any way to see him. So he goes to the governor's mansion. He makes fun of the governor's mansion because it's not really that big. But
Yeah. This is a mansion in Michigan.
so he goes there and he starts spraying Flint water all over his garden, I guess, like
Yeah,
his shrubs and
that was
trees.
a funny stunt that he did.
And he never shows his face. Um, so he waters his lawn with the Flint water.
I wonder if
Um,
the guy was even home at the time.
I don't know. That's a good question. So we get a cut from an angry like veteran guy who's he's he has like a um, an accent that would indicate that he would be like a hardcore Republican. But
Yeah.
when you hear him talk about the issues he cares about, they're like very populist and left leaning.
Yeah.
And
He's kind of like an angry radical progressive kind of like Jimmy Dore, except more of a tough guy than Jimmy Dore.
yeah, and then Michael Moore asks about like his operation, and because the guy is running a campaign to be elected,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy tells him like my campaign manager is a truck driver, and he's out
Mm-hmm.
delivering loads right now.
Yep.
Like these are regular people that are really angry and pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
So we get okay. Here's something that's going to be probably divisive. So he starts talking about the squad.
Oh yeah, this is one of my least favorite parts of the movie because I'm really not a big fan of the squad.
Yeah, it's the squad. We all know about the squad. Um, but I think that the squad is a squad. They were elected in their areas and they
Mm-hmm.
represent their areas. People think like this is the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
AOC is not the Speaker of the House. She's
No.
just a small faction um, within the Democrats.
Yep.
But they talk about how they were elected. It's not the full squad because I don't think they talked to the Somalian lady. I forget her name.
Yeah, for your name too. I think you just talked to two of them, right? AOC and Rashida Tlaib.
Yeah, Talib seems okay to me. Like,
Yeah,
um, I've never thought she was bad. I know said some pretty inflammatory things about Trump,
yeah.
but whatever. She seems to be an okay person. Because
Hmm.
you don't see her on Twitter too much. It's always AOC on Twitter.
Yeah,
Very
AOC's
inflammatory.
AOC's more annoying, but also hotter.
Yeah, so she's the one that wants to make lists and all that other bullshit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know in the previous um, 2 year runoff elections, there were a lot of women who ran.
Hmm.
And the thing that's been interesting about American politics is whenever there's like a huge scandal that involves um, sexual assault, women tend to run for office like directly preceding that.
Oh, I didn't notice that
In
before.
this case, it was the Kavanaugh deal.
Oh, right.
In the previous case, it was what's her name? I think it was Clarence Thomas or
Was it? How
I
long
can't
ago was
remember.
that?
It's like what was that? It was Anita Hill. Do you know who Anita Hill is?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't remember anything about who she is.
Okay, let me just look her up real quick because she had allegations against another Supreme Court nominee,
Oh, okay.
and
Oh, by
directly.
the way, that was a cool little kind of cameo interview that Michael Moore did with Crystal Ball, who I know were both.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was like, what? Crystal Ball was like, she was a West Virginian like grassroots political activist. I was like, wow, I didn't know
Oh
she
yeah,
was.
that's how she got her start. She was actually I don't remember, like she was some sort of mainstream news anchor. I don't remember whether she was that first or
MSNBC, I think.
yeah, I think she was on MSN. I don't remember if she was on whether she was on MSNBC and then she was like a grassroots politician or the other way around and then she eventually transitioned to the Hill where she is now.
Well, I did write her in the notes, so I know that's for sure. We just haven't gotten there yet. So the Anita Hill, she was someone who accused Clarence Thomas for sexual assault.
Oh, okay.
In the preceding runoff elections, there was a huge surge of women who ran and
Oh,
won
okay.
seats.
Well,
So
what happened with that accusation? I guess he obviously didn't go to jail or anything like that for it.
no, of course, you had people who. It's basically the same thing that happened in the Kavanaugh deal. It's not much difference between the two.
So like the claims were kind of like unclear, and
Well, of course, well, in both cases, the claims were pretty much dismissed, and then they weren't nominated to be in the Supreme Court.
okay.
Um, let's see. DNC poised to stomp out Democratic Socialists. So they were not supporting the squad and grassroots types of politicians, which includes the burn.
Right.
Um, and they talked to somebody named Tilleman. We had a recorded conversation of an incumbent type of politician or someone from the DNC talking to this upstart politician, and he's like the DNC guy is basically telling him to drop out of the race.
I don't remember this part.
It's a part where like the DNC is telling some politician that he needs to drop out because they need to make room for some other establishment politician.
Okay.
Um, so basically, they're telling him that they're going to turn off his funds.
Right.
So next section we get to the whole teacher strikes. They start with
Yeah.
West Virginia.
That part
What?
was that part. I guess I have mixed feelings about that whole section. I guess I think like the whole teacher strikes are interesting and very unfortunate, and especially like the school shootings in particular are obviously phenomenally fucked up. Um, but like when it gets into after that, like the students starting all these movements and shit like that, I honestly didn't really. Maybe I'm callous, but I didn't really care about those student movements.
Well, I felt that I was basically on the side of the teachers.
Yeah, I was
Because
on the side of the teachers too for that part. I would say, yeah,
yeah, because it was stated that a lot of the teachers were on food stamps. That's
yeah, that's fucked
crazy.
up, man. And yeah, like some of them had to get second jobs, and it was awful for them.
And some of
And
them were like second parents supporting some of
yeah,
the very poor students.
and there was that whole part too about how they were required to buy Fitbits in order
Fitbits.
to get health care. Like, what the fuck? That makes no sense.
Yeah, and if they didn't do certain Fitbit stuff, like would void their health care, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's really stupid.
Um, and then there's this guy named Jim Justice that they focus on, who's like, I guess he was like a politician from West Virginia. And I put, sounds like Donald Trump. He says, nobody loves teachers more than me.
Oh
That's
yeah, yeah.
such a Donald Trump saying.
That's such like a politician in general thing to say too. Like
Hmm.
nobody loves these people more who I'm about to insult more than me. But we should not help these people.
Hmm. So they also highlight that the teachers union is quite weak,
Yeah,
and some of the teachers strike without union support.
yeah.
Eventually, all 55 counties of West Virginia strike. And the crazy thing about West Virginia is that half of the students in their school system basically they use school as a means to feed themselves.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of the teachers would dedicate some of their time to get meals to these students.
That was very good of them, of course.
We also They also highlight the red bandana, which is they go into the history of that, and it was a symbol for coal miners who were actually striking, and these
Yeah.
coal miners were called rednecks.
Yeah, I would that's interesting. Like it's was that the origin of the term redneck?
I don't know. It could be
Yeah.
It might be an origin that also coincides with some other things, but
Okay.
they try to explain that it comes from coal miners.
Yeah, I wish they had went into that aspect a little bit more, even though I know it doesn't have that much to do with the main aspects of the documentary, but I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so the union leaders caved and they gave the union some really shitty terms. The teachers were like, fuck no, we're gonna stay strong and continue to strike. And eventually they actually got what they wanted. Seeing the success of this movement, teachers started striking across the U.S. Like, it's not everywhere, it's just like in the worst areas. I remember during this time, and I don't know if you heard this, like the Oklahoma public, and this is before the pandemic, so this had nothing to do with shutting down for coronavirus. But the Oklahoma public school system was so underfunded that they couldn't pay teachers enough. So they had teachers working part time, which meant kids only went to school 3 days a week.
Oh, I didn't remember that part. I remembered the first part that the teachers. No, I just remembered the part about the teachers getting second jobs. I didn't remember that whole part about the kids going to school only 3 days a week because
Oh
the
no, this isn't in the documentary.
Oh,
This is
okay.
yeah, this is what I remember around this time when the teachers were
Oh,
striking.
okay. That would be why I don't remember it then.
Because I think they said West Virginia was ranked 49th or 48th.
Yeah,
So in
sure.
education, so Oklahoma was ranked dead last. They didn't really go into this, as I guess he didn't go to Oklahoma to talk to the teachers. He just went to West Virginia. But in Oklahoma, was so poor that teachers were getting paid part-time wages, and school was only running for 3 days a week.
Okay.
Um,
Man.
that is a straight up failure
Yeah,
of
man.
government there.
Well, and
Um,
I like that. It reminds me too. I like the point that at least a few people in the documentary make a few times that I've heard many times before, but is still always a great criticism nonetheless. Why does the U.S. have like over $100 billion a year to spend on foreign wars, and they can't pay teachers enough, and they can't fix totally fucked up and run down neighborhoods and give people health care and shit like that?
well, when it comes to school systems, it's the state that runs the school systems.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, so West Virginia and Oklahoma were just running very shite education systems there, and they weren't paying teachers. And that's when you don't invest in your education, that's why you're ranked 49th and 48th.
Well, the
And
education is really important too because, surprise, surprise, those people grow up to be adults and then they become the backbone of the economy in the future. So you should kind of invest in their education so that, even from for like I said, from an economic perspective, it's wiser to do so because if those people flourish in the future, then they can support the economy more.
yeah, for sure. So this is where Crystal Ball pops in, one of my
Mhm.
favorite progressives, and
Me too.
she just basically talks about how she is helping with the whole teacher issue, and she was a political organizer. That's what her title was in
Hmm.
West Virginia. So after that, we get to the Stoneman Douglas deal. So this is where you didn't like the kids. Um,
I just thought it was like, man, some of it was ageism on my part for sure. I'm like, you're like 16 and you're this certain about your political ideas already. Why don't you like read some more books first?
I get it, but then again, like these are kids that literally had a dude shooting people up in their school.
Yeah, that's certainly
Um,
fucked up for sure.
like, and they do explain that they lost classmates.
Mhm.
And I get their pain. Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
it seems totally fucked up. I think the major problem that they're pointing out here is not. Here's what Michael Moore's pointing out. He's pointing out that there were no. That it had to be the kids to do it.
Yeah.
That it took the kids to do it. That's the sad part of this part of the story.
Yeah, for
That they
sure.
didn't have adults rallying. The kids had to go and do it for themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and they, like, I'm not opposed to what they did.
I'm not opposed to it either. I just think it's like I don't know. It seemed kind of pointless to me, and it kind of I don't
Well, I
remember what
thought they
I
were
would actually.
pretty smart for kids of their age. I was like, oh, these kids are. Because I remember when I was that age, I was not thinking about that shit at all.
I sure wasn't either. No, I was way dumber than they are. Yeah,
Yeah, so I was like, wow, these are some smart kids.
yeah.
And it's kind of messed up that they had to do adult things because there was nobody. They felt that there was nobody advocating for whatever they needed to happen.
Hmm.
And I'm not gonna fault them because one, they actually got some shit done. I know Florida has banned the use of those types of rifles for anyone under the age of 21.
Yeah,
So
like
they,
the whole gun control debate is more complex than people on either side of the spectrum make it out to be. Too, I really don't. That's one area where I'm really kind of ambiguous with a lot of aspects of that whole debate. I mean, I think there should be there should definitely be more gun control as there is, and there should be background checks and mental health checks, and you should even like maybe even have to take a firearms training course before you
Mhm.
get a gun or something like
Well,
that.
I like your guys' setup because before you can get a gun, you have to get a psych evaluation in
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah, that's how it should be done, I think.
I
And
think too. I think there
but
should be some type of evaluation.
but at the same time though, I don't know I don't know how effective it is to ban AK-47s for people under 21, especially like because people can just illegally get those guns anyway.
From what I understand, he legally acquired the weapon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Have there
so
been mass shootings with people both legally and illegally acquiring the weapons?
yeah, I know Sandy Hook was illegally acquired because he took it
Okay,
from, I think, his mom or dad or something like that.
okay,
A lot of cases, though, they are legally, I think, acquired. I know Columbine, they were illegally acquired.
okay. I was thinking about that example. I didn't remember whether they were illegally acquired or they just got them from their parents.
No, it was illegal. I know one of the weapons was not legal. I think it was the Tech 9 was not a legally acquired weapon.
Okay.
Um, anyway, like I know some of the kids were annoying. I think that's kind of the vibe maybe you got from some of them.
Yeah, that's the that's the sort of- yeah.
Yeah, they're like annoying little snots, but I thought they were annoying little snots, but I also do think about what they went through.
Yeah.
And hey, I thought it was funny though that one of them was called a skinhead lesbian.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was funny.
I was like,
Um,
is that an insult or is that like is calling someone a skinhead lesbian who's obviously a skinhead lesbian an insult, or is it just it's like telling somebody, oh yeah, that flat top black dude or whatever.
I think it
Like
was probably meant to be an insult.
it
And
was, yeah.
she was the most annoying to me. Like especially when she was giving those like crying speeches and like saying I call BS. I'm like, oh, shut up. I get it. I get it. You school shootings are fucked up. I get it, but I can't handle this chick.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Like it's like when you read an audiobook or listen to one and you just don't dig the narrator. I think that's kind of like the vibe
yeah.
I got with her.
Yeah, yeah, it's the person expressing the message, not the message itself.
Yeah, kind of like that one climate change. What the hell's her name?
Oh, Greta Thunberg?
There you
Yeah,
go. Kind of like
yeah, yeah.
that. So yeah, the one of the crazy things too, because there were kids that were like recording during the shooting, and I was like, how the fuck do these kids have time
Yeah.
to publish a video with like captions and shit while their school's being shot
Yeah.
up?
I sure wouldn't even be fucking thinking about my phone at all if I were in a fucking shooting situation. I'd be like,
Yeah, the only thing I'd be doing would be calling
charger.
911. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
on fucking Instagram
yeah,
or Facebook talking about, oh, my school is getting shot up. Like,
yeah,
fuck. And there's like captions and videos and stuff. I was like, really? You have time to do this shit while your school's being shot up? I
yeah,
know one of the captions was like, oh my God, no. Like, you have time for that? Wow.
yeah. Let me go into this safe cubby hole here so I can tweet.
Yeah, exactly. And then we saw all the thoughts and prayers, and
Yeah,
Melania gave her thoughts and prayers.
yeah.
Um, just notes because we did delve a little bit on this. Apparently, those Parkland kids have a secret headquarters. I
Oh
guess one
yeah,
of their rich parents gave them some office space somewhere
yeah.
or something.
And Michael Moore was invited to their secret headquarters.
I know they have a clip of Trump saying, like, literally contradicting himself in the same paragraph.
He does that all the time.
He's like, I didn't say teachers, I didn't say that I wanted teachers to have guns. And then literally right after
Maybe a
that,
little of them, maybe a few of them, maybe like 10%, maybe 30, maybe 70%. Who knows?
like almost all of them,
Yeah,
he says the exact opposite thing.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so this went to the state capitol. Um, I think there's a clip of like Rubio getting schooled about his NRA donations.
oh yeah, where their kids ask him if he will publicly refuse any
Any,
donations from the NRA, and he basically just avoids the question.
because he's an NRA flunky.
Yeah,
Um, I think we talked about the skinhead lesbian. So the
yeah,
guy that called her a skinhead lesbian dropped out of the race
yeah,
because he got primaried by them. So they randomly got somebody to run against him, and he dropped out, which is kind of weird.
yeah.
So just to let you know, that whole big old protest is called March for Our Lives,
Oh yeah, I've heard that before.
and that was
Okay,
supposed to be like a bunch of kids.
okay.
Oh, here's a scene that really pisses me off. POTUS is in Flint.
Oh yeah, Obama, right?
Yeah, Obama shows up.
Yeah, this is another really fucked up part. And I appreciated this part because it was like, some bipartisan criticism.
Yeah, so the governor takes the stage at some type of public little event, and he basically gets booed off the stage.
Yeah.
And then Obama shows up, and everyone's cheering loudly. So
Yeah.
Obeezy shows up, makes a speech,
Obese.
and he's like, "Oh, I'm not here to do a stunt," and then he does
And
a
let me
stunt.
do this stunt.
And then he does a stunt. He
Yeah.
wets his lips on some nasty old Flint water. He's like, "Oh, let me get a glass of water." And people in the audience
Yeah.
are like, "No, you have to drink out of the bottled water."
Him saying this is not a stunt was the most ill-advised advice of that that whole aspect.
And he says it more than once, and he
Yeah,
does like the lip wetting more than once.
yeah,
Like he doesn't drink it; he just touches his lips on the
yeah.
water.
And he's saying shit like, I probably accidentally ate a little bit of that lead paint on the walls when I was a kid, and I turned out fine.
That's a good Obama impression. So yeah, I was like face palming here, and everybody was upset.
Yeah,
All the people who invited them, they had regretted voting for him.
yeah. Like
because he.
this is crucial too, because like it's I forget whether he says it explicitly, but this is probably one of the reasons that people, at least in that area, voted for Trump instead of Hillary Clinton.
Mhm. So basically, Obama minimizes the whole issue. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt this was so fucked up and criminal.
Yeah,
And I wonder how he's going to address this in his next book, because I think the whole Flint situation didn't happen within the scope of his last book. And then we see like a busted Obama mural in Flint. And a lot of people, they said a lot of people chose not to vote in Flint.
yeah. Well, that makes sense.
So we get to hear about a lot of Obama's blunders and his, of course, the whistleblowers, drone strikes,
Mm-hmm.
and deportations. Um, so another crazy thing is they moved the military into Flint and started doing some crazy ass exercises, and
Yeah, that was
nobody knew what the fuck was going on.
like, let's not tell these people, but we're gonna use this fucking rundown community for war exercises because it's like those rundown communities in the Middle East.
And here's my conspiracy mind gone here. I think Obama made some type of deal with Snyder to do that. So that's why he didn't openly condemn him in that meeting or whatever.
Oh, that could be a reason. Yeah, it's probably some sort of corrupt reason like that for sure.
So all these people are saying the military flying around in tanks everywhere and bombs going off. And the reasoning behind that, I think they talked to somebody. It's like, oh yeah, this is because of all the abandoned buildings, which is fucking sucks. Because what does abandoned buildings mean? That the place is run down.
Yeah.
And then Donald Trump visits Flint.
Yep.
And I don't know what happens there. Only thing I remember with Donald Trump is it shows him, and then there's like some like black lady with a gigantic forehead, and it's like, what's wrong with that lady's forehead? Did you notice this?
No, I didn't. I didn't remember noticing that.
I was trying to find out who she was because I didn't know if that was really her forehead or if there was like some type of hairband she may have been wearing that was like flesh colored. So I was like, damn, that lady has a huge ass forehead. So I couldn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find out who it was.
Okay.
So we start getting into our Trump and Hitler comparisons.
Oh yeah, this was one of the stupidest parts of the movie for me.
Like
Like
Trump and Hitler.
this is like this is like one of the just most intellectually lazy criticisms that that uber lefties make, especially people with Trump derangement syndrome. Although like Trump is, especially with what the shit that happened recently in the Capitol, he clearly has some fucking authoritarian impulses, but I don't think he's evil. I think he's a selfish asshole, and I don't think he's competent or dedicated enough to be anywhere near as bad as Hitler. Like he's not going
Well,
to set up
here's
concentration camps and kill millions of people.
well, if evil means totally self-absorbed,
Yeah,
then I think Trump might be evil.
I don't know.
um, I
Like
well,
he doesn't.
here's what.
He is evil. He's
Well,
not the
isn't evil like
evil where I
so?
want to exterminate all Jews like Hitler.
Well, not like Hitler in that respect, but like selfish, like pure selfishness is like the mark of evil, and selflessness is like the mark of good, right?
Hmm. It's
So,
it's hard to know like when selfishness becomes evil. Like when you cross that line.
I think it's when you do it at the cost of the lives of other people. And we're talking about people who try to
That'd be a
maintain
hell of a lot of
power.
evil people.
Well, yeah. So if we're talking about like Putin, for instance, like he'll murder journalists who talk shit about him.
Yeah, that I would kind of agree with assessing him as evil for that.
Um, that's just totally fucked up. Like when you use your power and you try to kill people to maintain your power, I think that's evil.
Yeah,
And I think Donald Trump has skirted on that line. As
yeah,
people,
I would say so. I mean, if
there's not
you,
a whole bunch of people who died, but some people did die because he wanted to maintain his power.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, it depends on, like I said, it depends on how you classify someone as being evil. Like if you include like the people who died from the sanctions that Trump put on was it Syria? I think it was that people died from
Yeah,
not being able to get enough food, and then like selling weapons to Saudi Arabia to use in the genocide in Yemen, and then killing Soleimani. Like if you think that he's culpable for those what I would view as war crimes, as much as other presidents have been too, then he and other presidents like Bush and Obama, and I'm sure other presidents as well, could be classified as evil also.
yeah. I think it's more as a maintenance of power thing, like of personal power, personal wealth. Because if you're doing it as a sacrifice for everybody else, and it's almost a justified evil. If you're doing it purely for personal gain and power, then I think that's when you're on the lines of evil there.
That's an interesting philosophical question too. Like, is evil justified? And if it is justified, then is it evil? Can evil be justified?
Mm. Yeah, that's a hard question. But we're getting super off topic. So anyway, Trump is portrayed as wannabe Hitler, um, and then we got some. I think it's a quote that says it's not the Republican Party, it's the Trump Party.
Right.
As soon as he's elected president, he immediately starts campaigning,
Mm-hmm. For
and he,
2024.
yeah, and he flirts with the
I
idea
mean,
of
for
being
2020.
president.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 2020, and he flirts with the idea of being president for life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that he said, like, to piss off the media so they would make stories about it all day.
Maybe, but I would think he would take the opportunity if he had it.
If he had the opportunity, I bet he would. Yeah.
Um, I don't know where the statistic comes from, but it says in the movie it's stated that half of Republicans are authoritarian.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. It depends on how you. That depends on how you define authoritarian too. Like, I mean,
it's a
if
big
you look at
government.
some like some conservative policies in particular are authoritarian, I would say. But yeah, I don't know.
And he shows that Trump keeps his promises to the elites. So we're talking about like the big tax cuts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, they just kind of go through all the little things that show that Trump is an authoritarian. I think that's not really in dispute that he's
Yeah,
an authoritarian. I think it's pretty well known by most people.
he has some pretty authoritarian impulses for sure, I would say. And
Well,
he's
yeah,
consistent too, because sometimes he's more authoritarian than other times. Like he could have done like some sort of federal crackdown to do with COVID, like preventing lockdowns or something like that. Even though he probably didn't technically have the legal power, he could have done shit like that anyway.
yeah, and then I think in one of Trump's speeches or something. He says there's going to be an insurrection if you try to impeach him.
Yeah, that was kind of prophetic, wasn't it?
Well, the insurrection was because he lost the election.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Yeah.
And then someone said in the movie we were just one 9/11 away from losing democracy,
Yeah.
and that's kind of an interesting statement, you know.
Yeah. Given the riots in the Capitol, because people
Yeah,
are saying that that's the new 9/11.
yeah. Just to let you know, the Capitol is basically on military lockdown right now.
Yeah.
You cannot drive through the Capitol at the moment.
Oh, wow.
It is completely on military lockdown, and they got like
Do you
50.
regularly drive like around that area on your way to and from work or anything like
My
that?
wife does.
Oh,
So sometimes she has to go to work to drop off like teaching materials to students, but she said she's not going this week
okay.
because she doesn't want to go through the hassle of having to drive through that area.
That's understandable. Holy fuck.
Yeah, so yeah, it's on lockdown. So we see the voices of child separation and an old man on the verge of tears. So that old man, was he a concentration camp survivor?
Yeah, I think he was.
And I think he has legitimate points here. Like,
Yeah.
man, is that kind of a fucked up policy?
Yeah.
And from what I know, a lot of these children now, they have failed to locate their parents.
Yeah.
So I have
I
no idea
thought
what's
that
going on with them.
I thought that this part was I didn't like this criticism in particular as much because, I've heard from progressives this criticism of that particular point, which is that Obama built the cages and separated more kids from their families than Trump has.
That might be the case, but you still shouldn't be lax on the
Yeah,
criticism.
it's still not like it, regardless of who's doing it, it's a fucked up thing to do. That can't be excused for sure.
Yeah, and I can't remember, was there any right-wing media going after Obama or anyone going after Obama for his policies regarding immigration?
I bet there probably wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I'm
They're kind of like
saying.
they kind of seem pro that kind of stuff.
So if people weren't hearing about it, I can understand why people wouldn't have been upset about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like the whole Flint thing with Obama, like I didn't know about it, and I know recently, like there was a Jimmy Dore video, because he was talking about Rick Schneider, and he actually played a portion of this documentary that we're
yeah.
talking about.
He's played that many times on his channel. I've seen it there.
Oh, he has? I only
Yeah,
saw it like recently.
yeah. He's played it at least a couple times anyway.
Mm. So now Michael Moore proposes that we need to get rid of the system that gave us Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes through all the bad shit Trump has done, and then talks about reforming the system that created Trump. And shortly after that, we hear a klaxon sound off.
Oh yeah, this
I
is that.
completely forgot about this shit.
I remembered this because from the first Tulsi Gabbard interview that she did on Joe Rogan's podcast, they talk about it, and I've seen her talk about it on I think maybe one or two other podcasts because I think she was governor at the time.
Well, she was a representative. I
Yeah,
think she might have been a senator or a representative. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't remember what her official title was exactly.
Yeah, she was either a senator or a representative. I'm not quite sure, but I know she was in Congress of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's a fake or an accidental triggering of the missile alert system.
Yeah.
and told everybody that missiles were coming in.
Yeah.
So people were
People were
freaking the
freaking
fuck
the fuck
out,
out.
understandably.
Understandably. Yeah.
So, man, I can't. It's funny too because I have a lot of family members that live over there, so they were freaking
Oh,
out.
wow.
And because during this whole time, Trump was feuding with Kim Jong Il on Twitter,
You mean Kim
and
Jong-un?
Kim Jong Un, and saying that he was
Oh,
going to
saying, we'll bring fire and fury.
fire and fury.
Yeah.
Um, well, maybe it's a good idea to strip Twitter away from Trump. It's because of something like that. Because he did escalate shit with him
Yeah.
through the internet, and I think
Yeah. And we
because
found out with that new Bob Woodward book about Trump that we both read that he was actually, even though I admire his efforts to actually kind of try to make peace with North Korea, he did get way closer to America literally going to war with boots on the ground with North Korea than we originally thought.
yeah, so it was far scarier than I thought. Things like during this time, I was like, yeah, he's not gonna do nothing. He's just being Trump, being Trump. But like
Mhm.
behind the scenes, they were like doing some war planning,
Yeah,
and I was like, wow, these guys are really going to take it up a notch without anybody knowing that they were taking it up a notch.
yeah, yep,
So in hindsight, is something that I should have been more wary of, but there's no way I could have known that they were actually planning military shit behind the scenes.
yeah, for sure, man.
The only good thing is that now, whenever we refer to Kim Jong Un, we just call him Rocket Man now, and that's probably the best insult that Trump ever came up with.
Yeah.
Like all of the others pale in comparison to Rocket Man. Like he's calling the dictator of North Korea, he's calling him to his face, he's calling him Rocket Man.
Yeah,
That's just fucking hilarious.
yeah,
He is the dictator of a country.
yeah,
He's calling him Rocket Man.
yep. Hey, Rocket Man.
Man. So that's gonna live with him forever. Like he's
Yep,
gonna be known as Rocket Man.
yep.
Um, and then the movie ends with skinhead lesbian.
Oh, I forgot that it ended that way.
I have no idea why or what she was doing, but it ended with her, I don't know, saying something. I just don't remember.
Okay.
And I'm not using skinhead lesbian as a derogatory term. It's just a descriptive way because she had a shaved head,
Right.
and I did some research and she is LGBT.
Okay.
So I'm not like being derogatory to her. I'm just saying, hey, it's the skinhead lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if it's funny because I guess when some super bigoted person says something like that, a skinhead lesbian is so outside of their norm that them calling somebody that is supposed to be meant as an insult.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like if this is something you just go into the city, like I don't say I'm going to say I see women shaved bald all the time, but where I live, it's not that uncommon.
Oh, really? I've only seen
No.
if I probably can count on one hand the number of times I've seen that out in the world in real life.
Well, I don't know if they're lesbians, but in my neck of the woods, um, African American women, it's not unpopular that they shave their heads. I see them occasionally with shaved heads around here.
Specific.
It's rare to see like a white person or like a Mexican or Hispanic person do it.
Huh.
Um,
That's
I've
interesting.
seen like Skrillex chicks or whatever with like half their head shaved, like a Sean Chan, but not like a full head shave. I see black chicks with full head shaves, but not like skin shiny bald. We're talking like maybe like 3 millimeters, maybe on a pair of clippers.
Like my hair right now?
Some I've seen shorter than that, actually.
Okay.
Some I've seen almost shiny bald,
Oh, okay.
but shiny bald is not common for women. I'll see them with like the skinhead lesbian, probably like that length. But yeah, that's not super uncommon. I see it occasionally here.
Hmm. I wonder why.
I think on the East Coast, black women, I don't know, they just go crazy with their hairstyles here. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe they just don't want to wear a weave, and they're just trying to liberate themselves. Who knows? Well, yeah, that's the end of the movie.
I know from I saw a documentary a long time ago, like narrated and kind of hosted by Chris Rock. I think it was
Mhm.
called Good Hair, and it was mostly about how black people and black women in particular spend a hell of a long time on their hair and on weaves too.
Yeah, weaves are ridiculous. Um, Might as well just wear a wig and shave their head bald.
Yeah.
It's like you probably would spend less money that way,
Yeah.
like getting some good high quality wigs. I think a lot of like older black folks use wigs mainly.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like most black people who have hair that looks like they're white, they're either wearing a weave or they're wearing a wig.
Right.
And it's funny how black women are allowed to like emulate like the white like hairstyles. But if you see a black dude with sporting a conch, they'd be ridiculed to oblivion.
Yeah.
Like you don't see black people sporting conchs anymore. Do you know what a conch is?
No.
Um, a conch is like the hairstyle that was popular in the 50s and earlier times. Um, if you saw, you would see conchs on people who were hip. So we're talking about like singing groups. You'll see black people with like slick back hair. Like Sammy Davis Jr. had a conch.
Okay. I'm
Trying to
gonna
think
look
of
this up.
Malcolm X when he was young, before he became like a Muslim, had a conch. Um, like if you go online and you type in conch hairstyle, that's CONK.
Oh, like just greased back hair?
Yeah, but like straightened and everything.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
not only greased back, it's straightened because you can't take a black person's hair and grease it back and it'll be straight. You have to put like chemicals in it and shit.
Oh, okay.
So CONK, did you find it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Okay. I
like
didn't know there
that.
were subtleties before, I guess. I thought it was just like greased back hair.
No, they had to get it straightened with a chemical straightener.
Oh, okay.
It's like Little Richard, you know,
Yeah.
like
Man, if I were a black person, I'd just want to get like a fro if I could grow one.
yeah, Little Richard had a conch. What's his name? The Godfather of Soul had a mean
Uh,
conch.
oh, okay.
Um, Nat King Cole,
Right, right, right.
very famous jazz singer. A lot of those singers from back then had conchs.
Okay.
Like most of them did. It was kind of like the thing.
Hmm.
Some of them didn't put a whole lot of chemicals in their hair. Some of them would maintain like a wavy type of slick back look. But
Okay.
there were the others who went full on straight, and it looks like extremely straight. So yeah, it would really depend. But there are some people, I guess, that you don't get a whole lot of conk hairstyles these days. It's just not really looked well upon.
Do you think that was like an did that see do you think that was like particularly popular with black people, that hairstyle, or was it like popular with people in general?
Well, a conk is anyone who has very like curly hair and you're trying to make it look like your hair's straight.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Like Jewish people, I assume, that had super curly hair could get conks too.
Oh, okay. So since I don't naturally have really curly hair, if I just have grease back hair, that's not a
No,
conk.
that's not a conk. You'd have to have your natural hair would have to be very curly, very tight curls. Like
Okay.
my curls are very loose, so I did conk it a bit when I was young. Because I could conk it without having to put in straighteners. I could just slick it back,
Okay.
and when it was like wavy looking. Because my hair isn't, it's not typical of somebody of my race since I'm mixed race. So it's, do you know who Troy Polamalu is?
No.
You probably don't. If you look up his hair, that's how my hair is. Troy Polamalu is like a Samoan football player. See if you
Okay.
can find it. If you can find it,
Troy
he always has his hair long.
Troy Palomalu?
Yeah,
Polamalu? Is that how it's spelled? Uh,
Polam.
okay. Yeah, he's got like, well, there's one here where it's like all frizzy, and then there's one where it's kind of like just curly.
Yeah, so mine is more of the frizzy version of Troy. That's how my hair is when I grow it out. Well, I
Okay.
can't grow it out like that anymore. I did at one point in my life. But if I grew it out now, I'd probably just look like I had a skullet, like a receding skullet line or something.
Okay.
So it wouldn't look too great. Um, but yeah, my hair is kind of like that,
Okay.
except a little bit more like tightly curled.
Okay.
But I'm betting he probably puts like a bunch of shit in his hair
Yeah.
because you could see that he really loves his hair, and that's kind of like that's one of his characteristic traits is him having this long flowing mane.
Okay.
But I think it was also a superstitious thing for him as well. I think he didn't cut it because this is a Samoan thing. I think there's a Samoan thing that if you cut your hair, you lose some of your power and strength.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are a lot of superstitious things with athletes too.
Yeah. But yeah, he never cut his hair. He always had that big old mane. I think he still even has it now.
Okay.
Yeah, conk. But I guess he even had his hair insured, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, he insured his hair for $1 million when it
Wow.
was. Well, he did commercials for Head and Shoulders.
Oh, wow. That reminds me of like a long ass time ago when I was a kid when I heard that J-Lo insured her booty for $1 million.
So what does that mean? Like one of her ass cheeks gets blown off and she gets $1 million to reconstruct it?
I
Is that what it
guess.
means?
Maybe if it's only one blowout, it's like half a million.
Uh, like I don't understand what that means to insure your ass. Like
Yeah, I don't know
I
either.
don't get it.
I don't either.
Like if it starts sagging, you get some money for that or something. I don't know.
But then that would motivate her to get out of shape, and she's still in good shape even though she's in her 50s.
Yeah, she's in pretty good shape.
Yep.
Um, Still working it.
Yep.
But all right, so let's go ahead and rate this one. Uh, yeah, some of this Trump stuff I thought was a little bit overboard,
Yeah.
but I think now I'm not saying that Trump is Hitler. Um, he's nowhere near Hitler. He has nowhere near the capacity to be Hitler.
Hmm.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
could Donald Trump be a Hitler if he had the power available to him? I think he could.
Yeah, I think he could. I think he would
Uh,
need the commitment too, because he's lazy and doesn't commit to anything.
yeah, that's true. I don't think Trump. I think Trump is a bit too wishy-washy to be a Hitler.
Yeah.
But and I mean, when I say be a Hitler, Hitler from a young age had anti-Semitism ingrained into him,
Yeah.
and he
I
was
think he was
openly.
bullied by Jews when he was a kid, and he was like denied getting into an art school by Jews, so he like blamed all Jews. And
Yeah,
he broke.
he was openly anti-Semitic like the
Yeah.
whole time. And
Yeah.
it's funny because it is kind of true. I don't know how much the German people dismissed like his anti-Semitism, but I know for
I
sure
think
that
they
a lot
did a
of
lot at
people,
first.
yeah, like they it was like, oh, that'll be a phase. I think a lot of Republicans thought like his rhetoric was going to be toned down after he got elected.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't happen. Like he stayed the same. What you see is what you got.
Hmm.
Being the president didn't change his demeanor at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of Hitler parallels. He's not quite Hitler. I'd say he's like a wannabe authoritarian. You could take in any authoritarian leader in there probably,
Yeah.
and swap in the comparison. Doesn't necessarily have to be Hitler. Could be, Erdogan or, any of those dictators that populated Eastern Europe during the Soviet Union, USSR. Were you born before or after the USSR?
I was born the year the Berlin Wall fell.
So you never got to experience the USSR.
No.
So when you play Street Fighter and then you select Zangief and it's like USSR, you're like, what the fuck is the USSR?
I know the history. I didn't know, like, historically speaking, that USSR existed and all that stuff.
Yeah, like in school, when you pointed to that part on the map, it was the USSR. It wasn't Russia.
Yeah, I still had old text. I still had some old textbooks where it still said that sometimes. It still said Russia on most textbooks I had, but it still said USSR occasionally.
Yeah, I remember during the Olympics, it's like USSR. It wasn't called Russia back then. It was just USSR.
Yeah,
I think USSR sounds way more fucking hardcore than Russia.
it does.
Yeah, like when I play Street Fighter now and you pick Zangief and it's like Russia, I was like, I liked the USSR sounded way more badass.
Would it be more badass if you selected that character and then Putin came out to congratulate you by shooting some random guy in the head?
You say Putin?
Yeah.
Well, I know when you beat Street Fighter with Zangief, you start doing like that Russian dance where you're like really down low and you're like kicking your feet out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You do that with Gorbachev, who was the president
Oh
at that
really?
time. Yeah, when you beat Street Fighter with Zangief, you do that little Russian dance with Gorbachev.
Oh wow.
Yeah, whenever you get the chance, you go on YouTube and search for Zangief Street Fighter 2 ending.
Okay.
Yeah, Gorbachev's in the ending of in Street Fighter 2. I think that's like the only real person in any of the Street Fighter endings. They actually reference an actual person
Oh
that
okay.
lived.
I've played some of the Street Fighter games before, but it's been a long time.
Well, I think after Street Fighter 2 is when um, Street Fighter 2 and earlier versions will have USSR and every other one has Russia.
Right.
Because I think Street Fighter 2 came out the year that the Berlin Wall fell. That was 89, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it came out before the Berlin Wall fell. So, if any other iterations, they had to change it to Russia. And they had to change the flag because the USSR flag is different from the Russian flag.
Right.
It's the
Uh,
USSR flag looks like the Chinese flag. It's a hammer
I'm
and
looking up.
sickle.
I'm looking up Street Fighter 2 to see when it came out, and all I'm getting for the first search results is remakes.
Um, yeah, just put in Street Fighter 2 arcade.
Oh yeah, 1987. Yeah,
Oh, so 2 years
there you
before it
go.
fell.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was mistaken. Final Fight came out in 1989.
Okay.
That was meant to be Street Fighter 2, and they changed that to Final Fight and then made an actual Street Fighter 2. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that history. Um, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. I didn't know how severe the Flint situation was.
Yeah, I sure didn't
Um,
either.
I think if a documentary can piss you off, it's a good documentary.
Yeah.
And I was pissed off in a good way. When I mean pissed off in a good way, I mean not pissed off like after you're listening to like a Candace Owens book.
Yeah,
Um,
like I didn't know that. That's fucked up.
yeah, like that kind of pissed off. It's like,
Yeah.
man, um, that is totally screwed up. That's the kind of
Not
good
like
pissed off.
not the kind of like cringy like, "Oh, shut up. You're saying such dumb shit."
Yeah. So it did get me pissed off in the right ways. Um, but I'm glad they didn't focus too much on the squad. It was just a light smattering. But I do get what he's trying to say in this documentary. Basically, he's saying that the people have to basically stand up for what they believe in and not let the elites. It's definitely an anti-elitist documentary. It's definitely pro-populist,
Mhm.
um, the pro-labor. So it's definitely promoting left-wing, like the good left-wing values. And when I
Mhm.
say good, I'm thinking about um, the non-elite, the working class, making their lives better. And I know there are some values that I don't agree with, and I'm not saying that are in this movie per se. I'm just saying some left-wing values that I don't agree with in general.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm glad that those were pretty much absent in this movie. But then again, this is Michael Moore. He's not really into the super woke bullshit, so he's more into like the actual good left wing stuff.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, we never see him talking about woke bullshit. I'm guessing he probably gets attacked by those woke bullshit people anyway.
Yeah.
Especially when he said that Trump was going to win. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he was attacked.
You're a Hitler
By,
supporter.
yeah, basically, he was just looking at the facts and saying, "Hey, Hillary's not really a thing in my area."
Mhm.
So he kind of called it.
Yep.
This election, I don't remember what he said. Because there were a lot of people who said Trump was going to win, and then they changed their minds.
Mhm.
And I think they mostly changed their minds due to like the pandemic response
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
and the fact that we were going to do mail-in voting.
Yeah.
Because when voting becomes easier, Democrats win. That's just the way it works.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, yeah, because a lot of voters are older too, right?
well, it's not just that. It's the way the voter disenfranchisement works is that it's a very complex issue. But in issues where there's a lot of minorities or districts that there are a lot of minorities, there are less polling stations. So you gotta wait in long ass fucking lines just to cast a vote, which a lot of people aren't willing to do. And
Hmm.
that's understandable because um, people who are lower on the socioeconomic ladder don't have time to go out and vote. They're not given that luxury. So when they are given the luxury to do so, they vote. It's like, okay, I don't have to wait and plan half of my day to stand in line to vote on a ballot. I could just mail this sucker in.
Hmm.
Makes
I
it
was yeah,
a
I
whole.
was gonna say I was noticing too. Um, I don't know if maybe this is because I've always, when I've been a voting adult, I've always voted here in Fort McMurray, which is a small population. But well, I was like surprised when that woman said I had to wait for an hour to vote. I've never had to wait anywhere near that long to vote. I usually just go and there's barely a line, and if there is, I have to wait like less than 5 minutes usually. There was one really long line one time, but that's when people said that you could go to any polling station instead in the area instead of the designated polling stations, which is what they usually do. But
Mhm.
is that common to have such long wait times to be
It
able to vote?
depends. It depends on who you are, or it depends on where you live and who controls the elections.
Okay.
So, like in my area, it's super easy to vote. Like it's if I really wanted to, I could walk there. It's only like 3 or 4 blocks away, and takes no longer really than 15 minutes. And there's the last time I didn't vote this year in person, but the last time I voted, I was in and out in like 15 minutes. So, but there are areas where it's highly populated. It's a bunch of brown people, and they only have one polling station open that
Okay.
services like that whole county or whatever, which is
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is they're not allocating the resources to have multiple polling stations open.
Right.
So it's a strategy. Like, okay, you only open one place. We know it's going to take like 8 hours to vote. And that's going to eliminate a lot of people who really need to work that day and stay and make money because they can't afford to take the day off.
Right.
And what
Voters.
I think should happen is we should either get, in the United States, I think election day should be a holiday. And I also think
Everyone can vote.
it should be a paid holiday
That's a good idea.
that should be subsidized by the government. So if you're like a business and you're fucking pissed off because you got to pay people that aren't going to be there that day, um, maybe the government can assist with paying wages that day or something like that,
Yeah, that
just to
sounds
get
like
people
a
out to
good idea.
vote. But yeah, it's a very complex issue. But whenever there's a high turnout, Democrats tend to win. That's
I think
basically.
is it not the case there? I think it's the case here. I actually don't know whether it's a federal or just a provincial thing here, but at least here, if you're working, if you happen to be working on election day, then like you are required to get time off to go. Either you were required. No, wait. Either you were required to go and get time off to go and vote, or for the most part, there's like early voting where people can go if they are going to be like otherwise occupied, like busy or out of town or working on election day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no
you're
federal
happy to give
mandate
you time
here.
off to go vote if you haven't voted yet.
Yeah, here there's no federal mandate. It really depends on how generous the company you work for is. The company I work for said they would give us paid time off to go vote. Um, I didn't take. I'm not corrupt, so I didn't take it because I didn't need to take time off to vote since I was doing it by mail. So Really depends on how generous a company you work for, if they actually help out with that or not. But there's no law that gives them the ability to help these companies out. Depends on if the company has the goodness in the heart to allow you to get some paid time off for that or not.
Okay.
Because in my case, they allowed, I think it was like 4 hours of paid time off to go vote. So, yeah, it really depends.
Okay.
But what would I give this movie? I thought this documentary was really relevant to what's going on now.
For
I
sure.
think it's easier once we see Trump go on his way out. It's easier to see and to see what's going on in hindsight. What happened in the Capitol? Totally wouldn't have expected it, but I could totally see how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
he's kind of the most cultish of personality president that we've ever had.
Yeah.
And I think there is a good comparison between Trump and Hitler, and that would be like the whole cult of personality thing. And that's just like a dictator thing in general, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like dictators always have this whole cult of personality thing going on for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, like we were saying, I'd say he's like Trump is mostly like a wannabe authoritarian, but he doesn't have as much power as he thinks he does, and he's not committed enough to things to follow through with them enough.
Yeah, he is pretty wishy washy, but I don't know. He's good at inciting people. There's a lot of
Mhm.
people showed up to vote for Trump. Um,
Yep.
so he was good at getting those Trump people out there and doing their thing.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, like his bombasticness and just talking shit is that way too. Like it adds to his cult of personality.
mm, yeah. Well, that was pretty evident in the Capitol thing, right? Because they weren't there for like specific policies. They're there just for Trump,
Yeah, exactly.
which is almost the definition of a cult of personality.
Yeah, yeah,
So, the Flint stuff I thought was the highlight of this movie. It was
yeah.
really
Me too.
enlightening.
Yeah,
It's probably the part that pissed me off the most. Um, also, like, knocked Obama down a peg in my mind
yeah.
a bit
Me too.
more. I was glad that I got to see that. And we got to give this like a 3.7 out of 5, like almost a 4. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I would say that I'd probably give it more like a 3 stars. I like his other documentaries that I've seen more, especially the ones I've seen recently, like Bowling for Columbine that we talked about in Fahrenheit 9/11. I think those are more they're more like detailed and effective and meaningful criticisms to me. Like
Hmm.
I thought the whole Flint aspect was the most chilling and educational aspect of this documentary for me, too. But since it was called Fahrenheit 11/9, which what you told me was because that was the day Trump was inaugurated, it seemed
Well,
like
that
it
was
was
election day.
election day. Oh, okay.
Hmm.
It seemed like it was supposed to ostensibly be mainly about Trump, but it wasn't really. It didn't seem like it was really that much about Trump. And like I said, the most of the criticisms of Trump seemed like intellectually lazy and kind of low hanging fruit, or low hanging fruit at least to me. So that's why I don't like it as much as some of his other documentaries.
I thought it was funny though, like the fact that he straight up lied about having dinner with Michael Moore.
Yeah, he
Uh,
does that. He did that with other people too. I think that.
Probably has, like,
Yeah,
and then I'm thinking, like, man, he must be lying like up a storm.
yeah.
it's, it's, he's lying about like the most minuscule things.
I think he's a pathological liar.
Yeah,
I've heard people say that, and it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, because the only reason he would say that he had dinner with Michael Moore would be to build himself up as,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I've met with this celebrity and that celebrity and yada
Yep,
yada
they know me. They take my cows.
yada. Yeah, your impression is quite good. Um, but
Obama,
yeah,
Obama versus Trump. Now listen here, we need some respectability in office, sir. Yeah, well, I'm just the best and everyone loves me.
yes, you're quite good at these impressions. I wouldn't be able to do an Obama impression to save my life. Like, that's not in me. That's just not able to do it.
You see, what we do here is we make respectable government policies.
And we take a look at these folks over here. And
We tortured some folks, you know?
yeah, and these folks, we gotta listen to them because they're angry and they might march in the streets. So
I
these
feel
folks
your pain.
over
We'll do something about it. I swear.
here. My Obama sucks, but there you go. And I can't do Trump at all. I just don't know how to do it.
Sound like
I was,
I think the trick is to sound just a little bit like Cartman.
we got a tremendous support here. I don't know what the hell he says. This is just humongous, bigly. Uh, I won this election. I won it bigly.
It
You
was
cannot
tremendous.
deny it was a tremendous victory. Uh, you know what? You cannot deny. You got to get me 11,000 votes. I just can't do Trump. Just don't.
Hysteria
Uh,
election. It was fraudulent. You got
it was a fraudulent election. I don't know. I can't do Trump. I just can't do it.
Basically, my penis is tremendous.
I don't have small hands. That's fake news. The media, they lie all the time. My hands are normal. They are tremendous. I did not sleep with Stormy Daniels. The fake news, the lying CNN, the
Yep.
failing New York Times. They always lie. No, I can't do Trump. But you said you gave it a 3? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's not bad.
No,
It's just like,
it's
it's all right. Yeah, I would say I do like other Michael Moore documentaries more than this one. I do. There are parts where he seems to be grasping at a few straws. And that's why it's mostly the Trump stuff. Like, this is all stuff I've heard before 1,000 times. I didn't learn a bunch of new stuff, except for like his interactions with Trump. I thought were funny.
Yeah, they were.
Um, so yeah, I gave it 3.7. Andrew gives it 3, and I'd say it's worth checking out,
Yeah, I would.
especially what's going on now. I
Yeah,
think it's topical, especially since Rick Schneider just got charged with a crime over the whole Flint cover-up. So
yeah. You mentioned that. That definitely makes it more apt for sure.
yeah, so if you want to learn more about why he's getting charged, this is a good movie to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we could move on quickly to what we read. It's like 3 a.m. here.
Yep.
So what are you reading?
I read so much recently. I'm probably gonna have to look it up on Goodreads here. But one of them I told you about. I read that hilarious little
Oh, yeah.
satire by Mark Twain that has this like highfalutin title, 1601 Conversations, and then I don't remember the rest of it. It's like a really highfalutin title, but it's like a satire of the Queen of England and her court, and there are even like a few famous figures in there, like Shakespeare, doing things like farting and swearing and talking about farting and oral sex and masturbation, which I thought was so hilarious. Especially because in the audiobook version, which is on YouTube, you can
They
hear
have
them
actors
farting a
for every
few times.
part.
Yeah, they have actors for every part, and you can hear them fart a few times.
Yeah, I've also listened to that. I want to get a print version, a hold of a print version one of these days. When I was listening to this, what goes through my mind is like, if I was a writer, this is the kind of shit I would have started writing,
Yeah,
right off the bat.
yeah. Mark Twain is
Because
great, man. I haven't read much of his work, like other than maybe Huckleberry Finn when I was a kid. I didn't know that his writing was this hilarious.
yeah, so I'm thinking, man, I was gonna write some shit like this about people farting and like taking it seriously.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was hilarious. I agree.
yeah.
It's short enough that anyone can find it, and this is LibriVox, so that means it's
It's
a
public
public
domain.
domain. So
Yeah.
you can
If
go
anyone
on
wants to
YouTube and
watch
find
it,
it.
you can look it up. There's the audio. There's multiple copies of the audiobook that people put on YouTube. It's only like 20 minutes long. And I think it's
Yeah,
called 16. If you just look up Mark Twain 1601, I think it comes up.
yeah, and he didn't take credit for this, so he actually for years had submitted this anonymously.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it wasn't until much later that he admitted to writing it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm glad he admitted to it, so at least we know who wrote
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
um,
There's another one. I read another short one by him. It's called. It's similar. It's called, well, a little similar. It's called The Awful German Language, and I thought it was great because he actually kind of teaches you about the German language by ridiculing it and making fun of it. Like, this is a fucking ridiculous verb. How does this work? Look at all the like lack of masculine and feminine tenses. There's no specific gender. You can change the ending of this word and it means like 18 different things. So I thought that one was really good too because I actually learned a little bit about the German language by him making fun of it.
oh, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely worth reading too. I also started reading this book called Shogun that I'd say is pretty good so far, which is um, it's basically this super long, epic historical novel about samurais, which is why I wanted to read it. It's about this English guy. I don't remember what exact period of time it is, but it's when Britain was at war with Spain and Portugal, and Japan wasn't involved, and he gets shipwrecked in Japan, and basically kind of joins this that eventually joins this group of samurai, and he it's about him adopting to their culture, and you learn more about the political and religious aspects of the war, and there are some pretty there are a few like brutal and violent and interesting parts. It's a pretty good book so far. I think there are like 6 books in the series too, so I think I'll probably eventually read this series because I love those long epic books, especially if they're like this. So yeah, I recommend that one too.
Wow, sounds like something I need to put on my reading list. Sounds
Yeah,
like something I'd like. You said
yeah,
it's called Shogun?
yeah.
Sounds like The Last Samurai.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, this came out in the 70s. I wonder if The Last Samurai kind of stole the plot for this one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to
Oh, the
remind
full
myself.
title of that Mark Twain book, by the way, is 1601 Conversation as It Was by the Social Fireside in the Time of the Tudors. Very
Ah,
deceptive title.
all right. Well, I need to put the Shogun on my list. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty
I
good.
do it before I forget.
Yeah, it's by James Clavell.
Okay, hopefully my library has it.
Okay. I also um, I read this book called De-Evolution, which is by Max Brooks, who wrote World War Z,
Hmm.
and he's I wasn't actually really a fan of the book. I actually liked that movie more because I I didn't like the book that much because it was mostly just people's firsthand accounts of the start of the zombie outbreak, and it just was way too repetitive for me.
Hmm.
But I wanted to try this one anyway because I like the aspect of the story, and also because this one is like it's sort of like a fake nonfiction account of a Bigfoot experience with people. It's like about this town where this town called Rainier near a volcano where
In
something.
Washington State.
Yeah, I think so. And
Mm.
there's a power outage, and it basically goes into like it becomes basically kind of post-apocalyptic, and then a tribe of multiple Bigfoot start attacking them, and they eventually have to like develop weapons and get into this big epic showdown. And it's I wouldn't say it's amazing. I think I gave it 3 stars. So I thought it was pretty good, but not great.
Mm. So
And
it's like River Shoulders attacks
yeah,
like a.
yeah. I was thinking that too when I was reading it. This is the only book that's cool because I haven't read any books about Bigfoot other than the few Dresden Files books, in which he is a character. Yeah. Oh, I started reading that book called House Carino, which is the third book in the Prelude to Dune series by Brian Herbert, Frank Herbert's son. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting book, just like the other ones in the prequel. I'd say they're well worth reading, like at least almost or even just as good as the original series. Like in this one, it's about someone the whole prequel trilogy is basically from the perspective of Paul Atreides' father, and this one it gets more into the Paulus's father, Leto the First. He has met Paul's future mother, Jessica. It's like they have met now. They met in the previous book, and then also it's about the Baron Harkonnen, who's a character in the earlier Dune novels. It's more of his gets into more of his backstory as well. And in this book, there are people who are breeding worms so they can try to take control of the spice, which of course is the fuel for intergalactic space travel. And then other people are trying to invent an artificial form of spice. And then this other person, who's the emperor at the time, House Carino, he wants to destroy Dune, and possibly like even destroy the whole universe because he'd rather have the whole universe destroyed than someone take control and power from him. So yeah, I'd say the so far the prequels are just as worth reading as the other books in the series.
Hmm. I have to get back on the Dune train. Um, yeah, you know what? Let me go ahead and add that to my library list. What comes after God Emperor?
So the what comes after God Emperor, I think it might be Heretics of Dune. I'm gonna look that up. Dune book after God Emperor of Dune.
Heretics of Dune. Yeah,
Is
that's book
Heretics of
five.
Dune? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it
Yeah.
on my list.
And there's 6 in the original series, and then there are 3 in this prequel trilogy, and then there are multiple other prequel trilogies or like other uh, books within the Dune universe that were also written by Brian Herbert and
Hmm.
this same guy who writes with him, whose name I never remember.
So there's schools of Dune, heroes of Dune. How many
Yeah,
things of Dune
yeah,
are there?
those types of things.
Okay.
Um, also, I guess.
Prelude
Oh
to Dune?
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Okay.
oh yeah. I also read this short nonfiction book called Teach Yourself Film Studies, which is pretty self-explanatory title. I thought it was I kind of already knew most of what it went into, but I didn't know like the technical formal titles for the terms that they use, like like nonlinear storytelling and other more like academic terminology for film techniques that I'm already familiar with. And there were a few interesting parts where it went into specific movies, like it goes into the nonlinear storytelling in Pulp Fiction and
Mhm.
what the chronological order of the events in the movie actually were. That was my favorite part of the book. But yeah, I'd say that one was pretty good too and worth reading. Uh,
Okay.
and then, like I said, I read a lot. I've read a hell of a lot recently. The other than that, what I've read um, the most recently, I would say, is I read four short stories. Really, they were all really short. I would say two short stories by Stephen King and two short stories by Richard Matheson, who wrote I Am Legend and The Box and others, of course. And one was The Cat from Hell, which is also kind of self explanatory. It's basically about a cat who people suspect and then we find out has been kind of like manipulating events to murder people, which is interesting. And then there's another one. The other one by Stephen King that I read is called The Jaunt, which is about a teleporter device that gets invented, and it's about how there are fuck ups as there inevitably would be in a Stephen King story, and
Mhm.
it's interesting too because it's also about how in the long term how it impacts the economy and how it drives oil prices down and increases prices of water, which is interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, and then the two Richard Matheson stories, um, one of them is called First Anniversary, and it's about a guy who, on his first anniversary of his marriage with his wife, he finds out that she's actually a dead woman who has been pretending to be alive,
Okay.
and I'm gonna look up the synopsis here because I don't remember the other short story that I read by Richard Matheson is called Prey. I remember that one being a good one too, but I guess I can't remember the plot synopsis right now. I'm
Hmm.
going I'm going to look that up here. Um, oh, the plot centers around. Hmm. I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna look it up on Wikipedia. Um, I think also the. Oh, okay. Do pray. Oh, it was originally published in an issue of Playboy magazine. Oh, right, right, right. I remember this one now. Yeah, it was about it's basically about a warrior fetish doll that a woman buys and then it basically comes to life and starts attacking her.
A warrior like a doll that has a fetish for warriors, or
Like it looks like a warrior and it doesn't really get into that much detail about that aspect of it, but basically the point is that this little doll comes to life and is trying to kill her.
so it's like Chucky.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that's all that is what I've read recently and been.
It's a bunch of interesting things.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into it much. I know I started Rhythm of War. I
Cool.
think I sent that to you, right?
Yeah, you did. I haven't started it yet, but I will pretty soon.
I almost wish I would have re-listened to the previous three books because
Yeah?
I felt that I was missing a couple things.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
oh yeah, I kind of remember that that happened. You know, some of the events aren't that fresh on my mind, and the Rhythm of War, it's like refers to stuff that happens. Like, because there's only three books, but they're giant fucking books.
Four
The
books.
previous,
You mean three before this one? No.
yes,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
one on audiobook is 57 hours.
Yeah. They are giant fucking books, man. And like a hell of a lot fucking happens in them. You know that I recently finished Oathbringer, and there's so fucking much that happens in that book that
Yeah, there's a
I've
giant,
been
huge battle
yeah,
at the end, and
and
then
I've
there's
been
like all this crap going on with like the Parshendi and their religion, and it's like a bunch of stuff going on in that third book.
yeah, like there's so much that I definitely did not keep track of all of it when I've been reading or I mean rather when I've been watching or listening to the Legendarium episodes about it. I've been noticing how much I totally forgot about because so much shit happens.
Did you finish all of the Legendariums?
I have one
On
more episode left. I've listened to 3 out of 4 episodes on it.
did you?
I
I think
thought
the last one is a crying one. Did you see
I
that
listened.
yet?
I listened to the one I listened to yesterday, the third episode, I think. Um, Todd cried a bit. The guy cried,
Yeah.
and then the more nerdy guy whose name I forget. Is it Kevin? No,
I
the
know who you're talking about.
the more nerdy guy who. But he was crying too about how he's had a rough year this past year, and the book really helped him, and he left his religion, and he was tearing up about it. So I've never seen or heard him cry in an episode before. So yeah, that
That's
was
why I
surprising.
said it was a cry fest.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was like the most crying I've ever seen in any
yeah,
Legendarium. And then
yeah,
Todd cries all the time, but the whole episode was just like cry, cry, cry. It's like the tears of Thaddeus has infected them.
yeah.
The tears of Thaddeus. Um, yeah, so Rhythm of War. Yeah, I'm listening to that. I'm also listening to Why We're Polarized, which is a book by Ezra Klein, who's one of the founders of Vox.
Oh, okay. I meant to ask you actually, where did you hear about that? Because I heard about that in
Yang.
the Andrew Yang podcast that I recently watched with Jonathan Haidt because they both
Yeah,
mentioned it.
yeah. So they mentioned it, and I went and put it on my reading list, and it was available. So that's where I actually heard about it.
Okay,
Was when he was talking about that with Jonathan Haidt. I was like, oh, that sounds like something interesting.
okay,
So yeah, it's about kind of like the historical polarization of the United States, and he does go into some social psychology, like a little bit, um, but they talk about like the how the Democrats were a much different party before the '60s, because you had like these conservative Southern racists, and then you had like these liberal factions, and it's within the same party. So you used to have a liberal and a conservative faction in the Republicans, and you used to have a liberal and conservative faction in the Democrats.
that seems
And
like a better thing.
yeah, so what's been happening is that each of these parties have been becoming mono parties, which means one party is for this thing and the other party is against this thing,
Right?
which has also played a big factor in polarization because there's no wiggle room within the parties.
Yeah.
And like if you're a Democrat and you start believing in like abortion is bad, it becomes a problem,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're a politician.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I know Joe Biden like personally, he doesn't think abortion is good, but he thinks it should be for whoever the decision of the person who's having it.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that's a very like libertarian notion, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you would think that there would be something that small government people like the right would enjoy, but it's not. You know?
Well,
And I don't.
one good point that I've heard Michael Malice make many times before, though, and other like libertarian or anarchist leaning people like Dave Smith, for example, is that the conservatives are not, they're not small government like they claim to be. They're big government. They're for big war companies, big pharmaceutical companies. They're for, big government control of some aspects of the country and of the way things operate, but they're against big government things when lefty people are for them.
Mm, true. And then polarization, like I was saying before.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, what did I just finish recently? Can't remember what I finished. No, if I went and poked my head on Goodreads, I'd know. But
Yeah, that book Why We're Polarized sounds interesting, especially since both Andrew Yang and Jonathan Haidt recommended it, and as I'm more open to Ezra Klein's opinions than I used to be too, because he's one of those multiple people who I at first only got my opinions of him from Sam Harris complaining about him misrepresenting him on his
mm,
podcast, and then I listened to their long ass debate with each other on Sam Harris's podcast a long ass time ago when it came out, and I thought, oh my god, these people really hate each other. But I also thought, well, Ezra Klein makes some good points occasionally, but I see why Sam Harris was mad about some of his points, but he's getting really carried away with other points. And then, as almost always happens when I actually go and more thoroughly check out the work of people who Sam Harris is all mad at for misrepresenting him and stuff, I usually find that they're actually way better than the way he represents them. I certainly found that with Glenn Greenwald, for example, who Sam Harris hates. But I think that Glenn Greenwald is awesome now. And I mean, obviously, Ezra Klein runs a Vox, which is a super progressive thing. But when I actually went and listened to some of his podcasts that he's done, like he has his own podcast and he's interviewed a few interesting people, I thought that he sounded way more reasonable than the way that Sam Harris represents him, which is almost always the case when Sam Harris is mad at someone.
yeah, well, my thinking has evolved a bit from like the start of things when I started getting into these subjects. I know, like for me personally, the whole culture war thing is blown up and is now really an insignificant thing that doesn't really affect my life much. Um, so it's not something I worry about a whole lot. I know that Sam Harris um, is very. I know he seems to focus on the culture war too much.
Yeah.
And I remember the Ezra Klein interview that they did, like the little debate. And I remember Ezra Klein was dismissing the culture war
Yeah.
in that whole deal. And I'm kind of like creeping towards the side of the culture war is just a bunch of bullshit and it's a real distraction from real shit that's going on.
How
Um,
so?
because it doesn't affect me. Like the actual issues that that come up, like I remember like in the very beginning, a big thing was like the gender pronouns in New York or some shit.
Oh, yeah.
That has zero impact on my life.
Yeah, that's true.
um, the crazy shit
I guess
that people say.
I probably don't hear about that much of the culture stuff so much anymore because I guess I pay much more attention to people who don't focus on that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so like the whole college campus crazy stuff, like like I kind of drank the Kool-Aid in the beginning that, oh, all this shit is going to leak out and affect all facets of society. I
Yeah, I
think
did
that's
it first
mostly
too.
bullshit because they're like, oh, everything's going to become socialist and yada yada yada. And then I just started thinking, like these big ass corporations are not going to cede their power to socialism. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they're
it's
just virtue signaling about that when they do that kind of shit.
yeah, they're not going to turn their companies over to the employees. Like Jeff Bezos is not going to give all his money away and turn his company into a democratic socialist utopia.
There's no way he'd lose way too much money.
Yeah, it's so when everyone, not everyone, but whenever I hear people that are still hung up on the culture war, like slippery slope, and it's always a slippery slope argument.
Hmm.
Like, we're on the one-way trip to the gulag or whatever. I,
To
I just don't believe that shit anymore.
the bloody gulag.
I just don't believe that shit anymore, and I think it's mostly a waste of time to focus on. Like, I'd rather focus on something like Medicare for all. Like,
Yeah,
I don't give a shit if some like college students are talking about some stupid bullshit on college campuses, and I know when 10 years later and they got kids and like real responsibilities, they're not going to be talking about that bullshit anymore.
yeah.
So
If like some woke college kid goes to work at an actual company with real people and real employers, if they complain about someone calling them the wrong gender pronoun or some shit like that, most likely their boss isn't going to give a shit.
yeah. So yeah, all this woke shit, it's has like basically zero impact on my life. And there was at a time where I was like worried about this stuff like affecting my kids or whatever. And then I'm thinking, yeah, there's like way bigger shit to worry about. Like fucking social media is more of a threat than woke shit on my child. Like I'm just trying to think of more bigger like issues than whether or not there's some stupid law in Canada where public employees have to make sure that they're using the right gender shit. Like, like they made it seem like it was going to be everybody, but no, it's just if you take a government paycheck, you have to abide by these government rules. That's all. Um, but
Even that's a little fucked up though, but I
it
mean,
is, but it's only for people who take a government paycheck.
yeah.
So if you work and you work in a public job, or you take like in the public sector. That's like if I work, it was a mailman. It doesn't fucking matter if I'm a mailman. Who am I talking to?
Yeah.
If I was like a federal employee, like maybe I worked at the Pentagon or some shit, that would apply. But the vast majority of people don't work for the government,
No.
so it's not something that would affect me at all. So yeah, it's like I think the culture war is there just to make people angry for like almost bullshit, non-existent things that really don't affect them. Like I'm not a college student, and I don't think like some woke asshole is going to be the president of Amazon. And
Well, I mean, so I guess you could say from that perspective, some of the I've told you before about how some of that stuff has directly affected me more. Like when I was in school last year, I've told you
well, that
about.
makes sense. You're in school though. That's where you're going to find all the woke assholes.
Yeah, well, in college especially, I had like I told you, I had a sociology class, which was a fucking straight up social justice indoctrination class, which is like we had to talk about race and gender and inequality and Marxism and neoliberalism and all this kind of shit like pretty much every fucking class.
Yeah, so I've never encountered a Robin DiAngelo style training ever. Like, I don't know who has. From what I understand, it's she goes to like companies that just have a bunch of white people in it. I
Yeah.
don't like I don't I've never worked at a company like that, so like usually everywhere I've worked I've had a
She,
mix of
she
like
teaches
different
rich
people.
white people how to not be racist.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Like the whole culture war nonsense is like I'd rather focus on much more impactful issues, like
Yeah.
fucking Medicare for all, making sure that my daughter can go to college, real shit. No,
Oh, you still there? I lost your audio.
but it's not a huge focus of my time or energy. And I think that
Oh, your audio is cutting
his
in and out.
realm, that's Tim Pool's realm,
Your
that's,
your just your audio was cutting in and out for a second there. I missed a little what you said in the past maybe 30 seconds or so.
oh yeah, I'm just not into the culture war grift anymore. So I think that's kind of lessened my opinion of the people who still engage in that. So we're talking
Yeah.
about, Tim Pool and Ruben and Sargon, like all those people that just talk about culture war bullshit. Except Shoe on Head, I still like her commentary because
I like her because she's funny.
yeah, like she's not super angry and offended and snowflakey. She just makes
Yeah,
fun of people and she does it in a funny way.
yeah,
And the funny thing is she gets it because she makes fun of herself making fun of snowflakey people. So
yeah, and she often makes fun of both sides too.
yeah, so if she's gonna go that way, I don't get like I can't stand any more of like the super serious like culture warriors anymore because she makes fun of culture warriors.
Yeah,
Um, like she comments on culture shit, but she makes fun of the culture warriors themselves,
yeah,
like the people who are all super serious about it.
yeah,
So yeah, I know I used to be into the culture warrior stuff quite a bit, and then it started getting a bit too cringy for my takes and
yeah. I think
repetitive.
we've talked about this before a little bit. Like, it sounds like we both kind of got more interested in politics due to the culture war. But for me, it wasn't specifically Gamergate. I don't remember whether it was anything specific, but I started watching like, Sargon Akkad and Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson and people like that, and that's how the culture war is how I got interested in politics in the first place, and then I was kind of like in that rabbit hole for a while, and then eventually it just got fucking boring to me too. Like, oh, good, some other chick with pink hair screaming about race or gender or fat phobia or some shit that you dug up from the internet. Good for you.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about like the people I follow now, with the exception of, but his takes are all always predictable. The thing
Sorry, who are you
about
talking about? Your audio cut out again there.
I was saying like with the exception of David Pakman, because David Pakman often has predictable takes.
Yeah,
That's the thing I like about like Kyle and to some extent Jimmy Dore is that you see a title of the video, but you might not get the take that you think you're gonna get.
yeah, yeah. Actually, like I would say, out of well, like even if we're just talking about progressive YouTubers, I would say Kyle Kalinske is probably my favorite because he's funny, but he
Yeah,
also he doesn't get like super carried away like Jimmy Dore occasionally does, and he doesn't have like often his takes are not predictable like David Pakman's like you were talking about.
yeah. Yeah, and he does impressions. My
Yeah.
favorite is because he hasn't done the aristocrat, like the offended aristocrat, in a while.
Good sir,
That's
how
my
could you
favorite.
do this and be so irrespectable, disrespectful, sir? I'm so quite offended.
Yeah, the offended aristocrat. This classic.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, he's funny. He does impressions.
yeah, it's also his how you gonna pay for it? How you gonna pay for it?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just waiting for someone on the right that's has that quality. I just haven't been able to find them.
I think Steven Crowder tries to be that, but he's more like predictable right
He's
wing. He,
Yeah, his views are very predictable, and I don't know. They're not. He's not that funny.
yeah. He used to be like less predictable. I was following him for a while, a long time ago, and I think like when Trump was running, yeah, when Trump was running originally, he was against Trump and he was like promoting Ted Cruz, I believe. So
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
he switched over to being pro-Trump at some point, and that's when he started to get just like fucking super predictable in everything he said.
Yeah, yeah, true. It's just maybe it's just that conservatives have too much loyalty towards the establishment. Like I guess Sagar is probably my favorite like person on the right side of the coin
Yeah,
because he's willing to criticize his own. I think that's the important thing. Like all the guys are willing to criticize their own. And I don't know why that's so absent on the right side of the coin, but it seems to be the case. Sagar is definitely not, does not shy away from that. And that's kind of
yeah,
what I respect about him.
yeah. I like in terms of conservative thinkers, we often talk about how I think probably both of some of our favorite right-leaning thinkers are Sager and Jetty, uh, Glenn Lowry, and Thomas Sowell.
Thomas Sowell, yeah. And I wouldn't, I guess, because when it comes to Glenn and McWhorter, they're not really political.
Yeah,
Like they're cultural, really critics. As when I think about them, they don't really talk about like hardcore politics too
yeah,
much.
yeah. And
It's
like John McWhorter's a little more. He's a little bit more left leaning than Glenn Lowry sometimes. I think he is like. I'm pretty sure he's explicitly said that he's a liberal too. So
Yeah, he's a liberal. He just
yeah,
has his 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 view isn't really liberal, like an orthodoxy liberal. It's more of like a heterodox
yeah,
type of
yeah,
view. But he leans more towards liberal stuff than
mhm,
Glenn Lowry does. I
yeah.
think that's
They've
for
got a
sure.
they've got a few like minor disagreements based on that slight difference in their ideology. Sometimes uh, like Glenn Lowry is slightly more charitable than Trump to, or than John McWhorter to Trump. Rather, like John McWhorter thinks that he's like this dumb, bumbling idiot. He's not. He doesn't have like TDS or anything like that, of course, but he
Mm,
doesn't like him. He likes him less than Lowry does. Although like Lowry's not this like huge Trump supporter necessarily either. And then they have like minor disagreements about that sort of things. I think they had a disagreement about Obama versus Hillary, and Glenn Lowry didn't like Obama when he was running as much as John McWhorter did.
mm, okay. Yeah, I need to get some more Glenn Lowry stuff. I'm still looking at people's takes on the Capitol stuff. Like I've been behind on my reading because of that goddamn event. Like to be honest, like I've only completed one book this month.
Oh wow!
So I'm like super behind because I keep having the inkling to consume content regarding the whole Capitol thing from like my
Oh, wow.
favorite talking heads.
I've actually kind of kind of coincidentally really been paying less attention to politics and watching less political videos, just because I've like coincidentally been doing things like listening to more Legendarium episodes and watching like I watched long reviews of Oathbringer and other like not other like non-political videos. Like I watched one wisecrack video about Disney World yesterday, and then I've been watching more philosophy videos too. So I've still been like keeping up here and there a little bit with longer podcasts about that sort of thing, and then like a few videos here and there, like Kyle Kalinske and the Hill and stuff like that, but not that many really lately, like what we usually do.
Well, I usually don't spend too much time on it, but the Capitol thing just kind of popped off my political, I guess, appetite. It increased it to a point where I think it's dying down a little bit now, because I think the worst of everything has happened. But still been following stories. Like there's some guy, I guess, I don't know if you knew this, but all the info on Parler got hacked, and some guy created like a map of every single video that was taken on Parler during the rally.
Oh, okay. I saw that you had posted that, but I didn't look at it.
It's pretty crazy. Well, the one that I posted was in a similar vein. So he found all the different hashtags and tried to pinpoint like the temperature of anger on Parler. And then there's another one where someone archived all the videos taken during the Capitol siege. And since Parler records your geodata, he has the exact. He put on a map all these little red dots, and every red dot has a video associated with it.
Is your geodata like your date? Like it tells you the location when you posted something?
Yeah, it gives you the latitude, longitude, and longitude of where you're at, like to the foot. So he posted all of this hacked data. I'm guessing the FBI is probably looking at it. But yeah, there's lots of videos of people doing dumb shit at the rally.
I'm sure there is. Yeah,
Like that one lady who flew on a private jet. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that. Yeah,
Trump for a pardon.
yeah.
And she's on video. She said like stuff like she said some pretty violent things in some of the videos.
Okay.
So I don't think she's going to get off easy. Now I wonder if Trump's going to pardon these people. We'll see.
What was she guilty of?
Well, a lot of them for trespass on a government building.
Oh, you mean like she asked Trump to pardon her for like the shit that happened in the Capitol that she was involved in?
Yeah, she got arrested.
Oh,
she's gonna get arrested.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like, oh, Trump should pardon us because he told us to go and do that. That's what she said.
Not to do that. He already came up with that speech saying, don't be violent. This was fucked up. You shouldn't have done that, basically.
She was like, oh, I only did this because Trump told us to. So I think she kind of ruined her chances of being pardoned. I don't know if Trump would want to pardon her if she said that. So
yeah, no
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I heard the other day that he's being impeached again, eh?
Oh, he's already been impeached.
Already? Oh, wow. The process is already done? Wow.
Well, he already got voted to be impeached in the House.
Okay.
So once you get voted to be impeached in the House, you have been impeached.
Got passed by the Senate?
Well, he hasn't been convicted, but he's been impeached.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. We were talking before, like you, Chris, and I think about how if he's impeached, I wonder if it would even actually work out because it still has to be passed by a Republican Senate, and it still apparently takes time. But this was a fucking really fast process. And I heard that it was the most bipartisan impeachment in history, too, in U.S. history, anyway.
Yeah, because it wasn't along party lines. There were some, like 10 Republicans who voted with the Democrats. So what's going to happen now is I don't know if they're delaying the House vote. I don't know if it's actually going to get anywhere past the Senate because you need a super majority, which means you need 60 to
Okay.
convict. Because at
60
this,
Republicans?
no, you need 60 total.
Oh, okay.
So you'd need like, um, you need quite a bit of Republicans on the Senate to get a conviction.
Okay.
I think right now the goal is just to invoke the 14th Amendment, and that's what's going to be used to disqualify him from future office.
And what does that's what, oh, that's the 14th Amendment, hey? Is that the what I was hearing about with Kyle Kalinske?
Yeah, so actually the 14th Amendment applies because I know there's language in the 14th that it doesn't have to be incitement of insurrection. It could simply be aid or give comfort to those who have
Right, right,
participated in the insurrection.
right.
And
Yeah, that
technically,
was,
he did do that. Like
yeah.
the first video that he came out with after the insurrection, he's like, "Oh, I love you. You guys are great. I need you to stop." But
Mm.
yeah, he was giving them comfort. So
Yeah, that is what I heard about, but I just misremembered the amendments. Yeah.
so I think the 14th is going to be the tool, like the punishment. He's already made history. He's twice
Yeah.
impeached. No other president has been impeached twice in the history of the
Yeah.
United States. Um,
Yeah, I saw that I posted on social media when I heard Kyle Kalinske suggest that idea that I personally don't approve of him having been of his social media ban, but I think it's a good idea for him to be banned from pursuing public office again.
yeah, and it's likely that he's going to be remembered as the worst president in history.
He probably
Whether,
will, even though, in my
but
opinion, I still think George W. Bush is worse.
yeah, I agree, but he's going to be remembered as the worst.
Yeah,
And the objective facts they're going to use are that he was twice impeached
yeah,
and he wasn't elected twice because George W. Bush was.
yeah,
He was elected twice,
yeah,
um, which kind of baffles me,
yeah.
to be
Well,
honest.
especially his re-election.
Yeah, that baffles me.
Yeah,
But yeah, Trump's going to go down in the history books. Yeah, that's for sure.
yep.
He's going to be
What
remembered
he
as the
wanted. That's what he
twice,
wants.
the insurrectionist president,
Yep,
twice impeached.
yep,
That's kind of insane.
yep.
And I can't imagine what kind of speeches like kids are going to read that he
I'm the
made.
most heroic president ever because I'm the most hated by the establishment.
Like they're probably going to have kids read like one of his teleprompted speeches.
Yeah, probably.
Because like any other speech is just random. Like I reading his like unscripted speeches, sometimes it's hard to follow.
Yeah,
And I think that's just because of the way he talks and
yeah,
he meanders. Sometimes he'll jump straight into some other topic while talking about something else. So
yeah,
I remember a while ago I made like a fake Trump speech trying to imitate like his speaking style and the way he jumps around and trying to blurts out like an insult about a news media entity and whatnot.
right.
But yeah, history is not going to treat Donald Trump very well at all.
No, that's for sure.
And let's see what happens. Um, I'm thinking his kids are gonna come back around, trying to do
Yeah, I
something.
saw that I saw this video. Oh yeah, I don't think I actually watched it, but I saw this video the other day about how apparently Ivanka Trump is distancing herself from what happened at the Capitol for future political uh aspirations.
Yeah, because I don't know what the hell freaking party Ivanka is gonna run for.
I mean,
Because she's
I
not
don't know
really.
if it, like at this point, I don't know if his kids have any chance of winning in the future, but I don't
It
know.
depends. It depends on how strongly Mitch McConnell clamps down on on Trumpism or not.
Hmm.
That's pretty much what it's going to depend on.
Yeah,
That's I think what Donald Jr. is that the one with the beard?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he has a shot because he started getting super political. Ivanka, she's not really a Republican.
Yeah.
Like Jared isn't really a Republican.
Maybe she would have a better chance of winning because she's hot. Who knows?
Yeah, there's those points. But I think if
People
she
probably
ran, she'd run
people
as a lefty.
that would be interesting.
I think that's the only way she would be able to redeem herself politically is to run as a lefty. I don't think Don Jr. would run as a lefty. He's definitely like a
No, I don't think
hardcore
so either.
Republican type. Um, but yeah, I think if Jared ran, he'd run as a Democrat as well.
Kushner?
Yeah.
Hmm. I really don't know that much about what he has even said about politics.
Um, well, in all the Trump books that I've read, it's pretty much been implied that both Jared and Ivanka are closet liberals.
I see that about I guess I didn't remember that about Kushner because I've read some of the same Trump books as you at least, but I did remember that about Ivanka.
Hmm.
I wonder,
But
like,
yeah,
I was wondering, maybe someone has already heard about this, but I wonder what Trump's response is going to be to what he probably will see as Ivanka betraying him.
well, that's probably not going to be until Trump's out of office. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with that family.
Yeah,
Like, is Melania going to stick around? I don't even know how Melania stuck around for as long as she has been sticking around.
for the money. I
I
know.
guess she likes that. Well, she doesn't need to. Well, I don't know what kind of arrangement they have. Huh. It depends on what type of marital arrangement they had. Who knows? I don't know if she signed a prenup or not.
Okay.
If they signed a prenup, she should just get the hell out of there
Yeah,
as soon as Barron turns 18. You know, get a divorce.
yeah,
So I'm assuming she's only there for Barron at the moment.
yeah. It wouldn't
That's what I'm
surprise me.
assuming. So yeah, we really run off the rails there. Yeah, I didn't really read much this week. Getting back into reading now by checking out Why We're Polarized. And it's going to take me forever to get through Rhythm of War. It's just a long, long book.
Yeah.
Even though
How
I've
long?
gotten through like 10% of it so far.
How long is that one? You said it's like 58
57
hours, the
hours.
audiobook,
Yeah. Yeah,
57
about
hours.
57 hours, 58 hours around there.
I'm gonna look up Rhythm of War page count.
Because I have the hard back copy that I just bought. Well, I pre-ordered it. The only reason I bought it is to sit on a bookshelf. I was never intending to read the actual hardback.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
No, do you know how cumbersome trying to
Yeah,
read a hardback of that size is?
1,232 pages.
That's it?
That's what it said when I just looked it up.
Okay, that's a lot. 1,200
Yeah.
pages. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. But just trying to remember all the stuff that happened previously because they just jumped right into it. Sanderson doesn't reiterate things like Butcher does.
Yeah, I
Butcher,
appreciate that about Butcher because it helps me have a much easier time keeping track of all the shit that's going on.
yeah, because he'll reiterate um, like main character, like character. What would you call like the main personalities of characters? Like he'll reiterate them. Like
Yeah,
yeah, Butters was once a blah 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 blah. Like we've probably heard that 10 times.
yeah,
Or oh, old Johnny Marcone,
yeah.
the blah 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 blah, and he spends like a paragraph talking about that character's like origins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Robert Jordan does that too. Like he reiterates character like backstory as well.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him do it at all in the seventh book, which is interesting because maybe I guess he just stopped doing it. A lot in the earlier books, he would reiterate characters like what they
Mm-hmm.
do and who they are and stuff like that.
Yeah. I would appreciate it if he had kept doing that.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely doesn't seem to do it in this book seven, from what I'm seeing. And I'm also reading book seven, so I'm getting through there. I'm actually almost finished, I think, and I just need to talk to Tristan to see if he's good enough to do part two of our chat.
Yeah, that should be fun. And
All right.
yeah, we'll do the World of
It's
Ascension
like,
chat with him soon too.
yeah, for sure. Man, it's late. It's like 4 a.m. over here.
Yep, must be because it's about 2 a.m. here.
Okay, so it's probably time to wrap it up because I'm going to be off work in like 2 hours.
All right.
All right, you go ahead and plug away.
Sure. Yeah, if people want to, they can check out my YouTube channel, which is Mindgasms, where Dusty and I and others discuss a wide variety of topics. We often do we talk about specific movies and books, and we talked about Apocalypse Now recently. Going to do another podcast soon about who the best rock front man is, and we're, like I said, we're going to do that Well of Ascension chat, Mistborn Era 1, Book 2 with Tristram relatively soon as well. Also, next week, I planned another chat with Reed Nice Wonder from Mixed Mental Arts and Nathan, who both of them have SE or Street Epistemology channels, and a chat with them, and also my Orthodox Christian friend Shane Kennedy and his Protestant Christian friend Justin, and we're going to talk about basically the subject that was brought up in a street epistemology discussion that Reed did with a Christian guy who had an interesting perspective that I'd never heard before, which was that from his Christian perspective, he is for abortion because he believes that aborted fetuses have souls and go to heaven. So we're going to do a discussion between the four of us, three atheists and two different types of Christians, about whether aborted fetuses have souls and go to heaven. So that should be interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And so, yeah, also I do some of my shorter videos on here about books and other topics as well. And I also have a blog that people can check out, which is at mindgasms.bplifetime.com, where I post chapters of my novel that I've been writing and short stories, poems, and then also blogs about similar topics that we discuss on my YouTube channel, like history, philosophy, travel, culture, politics, science, etc. And people can check me out on social media if you want to as well. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Andrew Mindgasms or Andrew Meintzer, and Facebook Andrew Meintzer. Meintzer is the last spelling of my name. The spelling of my last name, And also check out Mindgasms on Patreon if you want to give me like $1 a month, which would be fucking awesome. And yeah, that's all my plugs.
Okay, great. Um, the funny thing is in the captions, when you spelled out your name, it just said your name. So,
Oh, it did?
yeah.
I didn't see that.
Well, it split it into two. Like mine was together and Sir
Mine,
was
sir.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it understood Z, so it put Z as Z.
Oh, interesting.
All right. I forgot to mention before I plug it away here. I forgot to mention that I watched The Mighty Ira.
Oh yeah, I saw that you told me about that. I didn't reply to your message about it yet.
Yeah, because I listened to your podcast, and then I went and watched some of The Mighty Ira. No, I finished the whole thing. And I also watched Rogan's episode with Ira Glazier.
Yeah, that's the newest one I saw. I saw that, right? I didn't listen to it yet, but I saw that that was the case.
Yeah, so the combination of those three things has changed, not changed, but kind of hardened my perspective on the importance of free speech. And I do really think it's important to protect the rights of the speech, even of the people you dislike or the things that people say, outside of, direct threats and things like that.
That's part of
Um,
why I agree with people who are against Trump being banned from social media.
yeah, so for the social media thing, I think even Ira Glazier agrees that yes, they're companies and they have their rights, but the conversation regarding social media banning, it's actually a different conversation. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation about the power of social media companies
Mm-hmm.
and how to think of new ways to deal with them. Because we can never, if we're telling the government, I think one of Ira's things was like you have to make sure to wrest control of free speech from the government.
Mm-hmm.
So that means also forcing and compelling um, private companies to have some type of speech. In the case of government interference with these companies, it's a little bit different. They would have to be either, I don't know, it's super complicated, and I don't think anybody has really thought up a really great way to fix this issue.
I agree. Yeah,
Um, it's going to take a lot of brainiacs and a lot of thinking to figure out how do you um, enable free speech in such a way that it cannot be hindered. I understand it's super murky when we're talking about a private company's platform, because I
hmm
believe they do have the right to use their platform as they wish. It's just that these platforms have a lot of power when it comes to public discourse.
for sure.
So, what do you have to do about that power? Do you make a competing power? Do you strip them of power? I don't know what the steps would be. But even with Parler getting shut down, I think I found an article from the guy who's run Pirate Bay for over 20 years, and he was laughing at the people running Parler, and he said it's embarrassing that they got shut down. The guy said that he had been targeted by several governments from different countries, and his site is still running. So he says that the people at Parler were just shitty with tech, and they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, which is why a
Mhm.
single entity was able to easily shut them down.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so Yeah, they didn't like Pirate Bay hardened itself from stuff like that. The same thing with WikiLeaks. Like a bunch of different governments have been trying to shut down WikiLeaks for ages, and they're still around.
Yep.
So Parler, they're just fucking weak sauce, and they don't know how to be resilient from outside forces. I guess they
Yeah.
just put their hands. It's like I understand exactly what the Pirate Bay guy is saying,
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't make their system resilient enough that a single entity can shut it down. I think there's a lot of talk about how you got to diversify and make yourself resilient. You can't just put all your cards on one table, on one deck, and then when that table gets flipped over, you have no other options.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't diversify themselves.
Yep.
That's like after the apocalypse happened, a lot of people, and when I mean the apocalypse, I'm talking about the crackdown on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, people started diversifying, starting to, instead of have all their eggs in one basket on YouTube, they were using a lot of different other platforms in case something happened on one platform. They had another platform to draw from.
Yeah.
I think that was just the problem with Parler. All their eggs were in basket, and that basket got turned over, and they shit themselves and didn't know what to do after that.
Did they have enough funds to like diversify them in the same way that other social media companies have?
Well, you don't need funds because the Pirate Bay ran. All they did was run ads on their sites. Uh, WikiLeaks, I don't even know what they do. I don't think they run ads. So, uh, I think they just lack resilience. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. So, who knows? We'll see. They lack resilience and the know-how. So, if you
Yeah.
rely on one vendor for everything, if that vendor stops doing business with you, then whose fault is that?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I only shopped at Walmart and all my whole business, say I sold things that I acquired from Walmart and my whole business required this business relationship with Walmart. If Walmart chooses to not do business with me, is it my fault for not diversifying like my business relationships with other entities? I think that's a legitimate argument.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man. We'll see. I don't think Parler's going to be dead forever. It depends on it. Like now that I see that they got shut down so easily, yeah, Parler is like compared to all the other like net denizen sites that I've been on. Like I've used the Pirate Bay before, and sometimes it would get shut down, but it wasn't shut down for long. It would be up like within a week. And the same for like our movies, our super secret site that we used. You know how many times that has been shut down?
A lot.
Yeah, and it comes back in some other different form.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they need to take cues from these other resilient sites that know that they could be shut down at any moment, so they plan in contingency and have contingencies for that.
Mm-hmm.
Parler didn't. It's kind of their fault for not having these contingencies. I
Yep.
know people complain, it's like, yeah, people make death threats on Twitter, blah, 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 blah. I was like, yeah, but um, Twitter, I don't know what kind of, I don't know if they own their own servers or what. It seems like Parler was like completely dependent on Amazon for their
Mm-hmm.
operation.
Yep.
And I know Twitter is actually going to use some of Amazon's services as well. So I don't know, man. We'll have to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I largely don't agree that they should be kicking these people off the platforms, but I do acknowledge it's their right to do so.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's my. Well, anyway, yeah, Ira Glacier, Mighty Ira, really good documentary. Um, and one of the things I thought was interesting in that documentary is that the Nazis and anti-Nazis were fighting each other just like they do today.
Yeah,
Like
you
fight.
pointed that out that I didn't notice quite to the same degree as you. I guess the modern day parallels between Antifa and Trump supporters that you were mentioning, or
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, because there's a scene where they're just beating up on each other, and
yeah,
like the main Nazi guy has like a bloody lip. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on today. Same shit. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a pretty good documentary. I thought his relationship with super aristocratic Republican guy, what's his name? The guy
uh,
that sounds British, but
I
he's
don't know,
not.
I don't know.
National Review founder.
Oh, William F. Buckley. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
These parts of the documentary were very interesting because he was against Ira Glasser promoting the free speech of Nazis, which I thought was interesting because he's obviously a famous conservative intellectual.
yeah, and Ira is absolutist when it comes to free speech, and they made some really good, convincing arguments that have kind of cemented my belief in it and my belief that you shouldn't censor it.
Yeah,
And
me
the
too.
biggest argument was like his argument was if you're handing over that power to the government, what happens when that government doesn't favor your political views anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're gonna
Which is why people like I've seen a lot of people like Kyle Kalinske and like Matt Taibbi point out lately that this sort of shit always comes for the left too. Like leftist people and groups have already been censored from this for this type of shit.
yeah. So they're gonna it's not a good idea to stifle free speech
Yeah.
because it's always going to bite you in the ass in the end.
Hmm.
But yeah, let me go ahead and get this done because it's like an hour and a half till I get off work and I still got to write a bunch of reports here.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to see if we could see how Trisham is feeling. See if he's up to doing part two for our Wheel of Time chat.
Sure.
And yeah, we're on part two or part three?
Part
Oh,
two.
part two, barely. Okay.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, we're not doing the front man thing, right? Tomorrow?
Yeah. A week from tomorrow.
Okay, so that's going to be a week from tomorrow. We're going to have a debate about who's the greatest rock front man
Yeah.
on
That will
Andrew's
be fun.
channel.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for watching. Join us next week for some Wheel of Time goodness and some who's the greatest rock frontman goodness. And you have a great night. Please like and subscribe. And you have anything to say, any comments, make sure you leave a comment below. I read them all. And because I don't get a whole bunch of comments, I reply to most of them. Like I replied to one the other day on one of my Thomas Sowell videos. But yeah, just comment and we'll get back to you pretty soon.
Yep.
And
Me
join us
too.
next week. All right. You have a great day, everybody.
Yep. Adios. Till next time, everyone.